keep it going, like the night is never over. From tonight until the morning, I just wanna get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you. If you want to, I just want to, baby, get to know you. I just want to, baby, get to know you. Get to know you.
got to let it go, baby. You got to let it go. You got to let it go, baby. You got to let it go. got to let it go. Baby, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. Baby, you got to let it go.
If I can, if I could build you up, don't bring me down, bring me down. If I fall, then would you lift me up? Would you lift me up or bring me down?
They would like this like the beginning of a revolution.
Jump up, they get beat down.
Well, I woke up on the lobby floor. Yeah, last night was some kind of war. I'm coming down like a waterfall. I check my phone, but you never call. Lost in the ceiling, caught up in the ceiling. I can't seem to let it go. Locked in this cage, I've been stuck here for days, and I can't seem to let you go. You pulled me up and I put you down. You gave me love, then I stole your crown. You let me in, then I pushed you out. Come let me make up for all these pain. I've been a mess, tied by all these chains. Open my eyes, now I finally see. Shut the key, yeah. Can we be free? You pull me up, yeah. Can we be free? and saw everything, everything but you next to me. I know that I've been the enemy, but I've had my moment of gravity, moment of gravity. Lost in the ceiling, caught up in the ceiling, I can't seem to let it go. Locked in this, yeah, can we be free? And I put you down. You pull me up and I put you down. You gave me love, then I stole your crown. You let me in, then I pushed you out. Pushed you out, pushed you out. Don't let me break up all these pain. I've been a mess, died by all these chains. Open my eyes now, I can see you're the key, yeah. You pull me up and I put you down. You gave me love, then I stole your crown. You let me in, then I pushed you out. Pushed you out, pushed you out. Don't let me make up for all these pain. I've been a mess, died by all these chains. Open my eyes now, I can see you're the key, yeah. Can we be free? You pull me up, yeah. Can we be free? And I put you down.
Let's get this thing off the ground.
Goddamn nerds.
Now I'm a god.
We've got a hot one for you.
Nothing is over until we decide it is.
Now I'm a god.
We've got a hot one for you.
You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds.
night that we drive and play Nirvana. It never started right away, it didn't wanna let me get too far from here. I was still too young to realize that these summertime jobs, they don't last your whole lifetime. I think it was a Honda. I run another light to get through the night. Scared as shit, but I know that I'm alright. We were 17, pure like kerosene. You protected me, you were my sunscreen. You protected me, you were my sunscreen. I'm running out of karma. I don't think that I'll make it any longer. But with you by my side, I feel stronger than I've ever been before. Still too young to realize that these summertime jobs, they don't last your whole lifetime. I think it was a Honda. I run another light to get through the night. Scared as shit, but I know that I'm alright. We were 17, pure like kerosene. You protected me, you were my sunscreen. I run another light to get through the night. Scared as shit, but I know that I'm alright. We were 17, pure like kerosene. You protected me, you were my sunscreen. You protected me, you were my sunscreen. I'm running out of karma. I don't think that I'll make it any longer. But with you by my side, I feel stronger than I've ever been before. I'm running out of karma.
got to get a hold of yourself.
Now you're playing with power.
Don't talk to me! 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 It's the ways of the underground. Don't talk to me!
Now you're playing with power.
Don't talk to me! 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 It's the ways of the underground. Don't talk to me! Check the technique!
What is up, everybody? It is January 23rd at 7 p.m. Okay, 7:01. I'm a minute late. My bad. We got a packed show this week. We really do. Like, last week was packed just because we had a lot of discussion going on. This week is just packed. A lot of topics to talk about. So, Mark, first of all, how are you doing this week, sir?
I'm doing well, Sean. What's going on? Everything all right with you?
You know, everything's grand. I can't complain. I got next week will be a little busy for me, but feeling pretty good. Definitely ready for Fan Fest on Saturday at noon up at BBVA Compass Stadium. Or BBVA Stadium. That's right. It's renamed now. That's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome for a chance to for fans to see Tab Ramos, see the Dynamo players, see Darwin Quintero in person training. Probably see a scrimmage or two, I imagine. I imagine they've probably got some stuff that they've planned out ahead of time. I think all in all, it's going to be a fantastic time and a fantastic occasion for fans to get that kind of first look and see how things are going.
You going to be there, Sean?
Oh, I wouldn't miss this one. Oh, heck yeah, I'm going to be there.
Well, they get to see you too, man.
Well, you know, that's something, I suppose. Anybody who wants to see me can always see me. I'm out and about all the time. Just ask people that are at games that know me. I'm always there. It seems like, it's a long season, but if you guys do ever see myself or Mark, and someday we'll get Mark on video, and I promise it's coming soon. We got technical difficulties we're actually still trying to work out to get him on, but. If you ever see me out and about, or you ever see Mark out and about, feel free to stop us, man. We are more than happy to talk Dynamo. I don't care who I'm with or what I'm doing. If you stop and say, I'm a fan of Gen Orange, just wanted to say hi, let you know who I am, let you put a face to the name or whatever. Believe me, we will talk soccer with you. No problem with that. If you're stalking us, that's a different story. If you're a stalker, stay away. I don't sign those kinds of autographs, yo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I know I haven't been on video since I've been on the show, and obviously a lot of people know Sean from the previous version of Generation Orange. But in case you want to see what I look like, kind of, sort of, you can follow us on Twitter at Segovia and at Sean Ringrose. The picture on there. I don't know. I think I'm wearing a hat. I don't remember what picture I have on there, but yeah. But we'll get video up pretty soon.
So let's see. This week we have on tap. We're gonna. I got a rant that I'm gonna have to go on. I've been saving it, been waiting, but this week it is just necessary. And a lot of people think they probably know what I'm gonna rant about, and I don't think they do. I think only a select few that are close to me know what I'm about to rant about. But we also have, we talked about it, and you went on your, I guess, air quote, rant last week. That wasn't a rant, dude. I got to teach you how to rant. No. But Chicharito is officially a LA Galaxy, a Galaxian. I don't know what do you call them? I mean, he's part of the Galaxy, but like, what is, at least when you're on the Dynamo, you're considered a Dynamo, right? You're considered part of the team. The Galaxy, are you a Galaxy? Like, how does that work?
And I think they want to go after the Galacticos. I guess name what Real Madrid had when they had Beckham and Ronaldo and Raul and Zidane back in the days in the early 2000s. I think they're trying to steal that thing, but I don't think it's sticking too well with them. There's only one. There's only one Galacticos really, that can keep that name.
Well, and then you have Galatasaray over in Turkey, so it's not like. There's enough gals out there can't really take it. I'm sorry, that's not how it works, especially one coming this late in the game, if you will. But regardless, he's official, so we're going to talk a little bit of Chicharito, his effect on MLS. Even though we talked about it a little bit last week, we want to rehash some of that. And there is something that has come out this week directly from him that's gonna really be enjoyable to talk about. And I'm absolutely ready to talk about this. What's up, Darby? What's up, Brian? We're also going to talk. About something Matt Jordan said on Soccer Matters this week with Glenn Davis, related to Darwin Quintero. And that ties into my rant, so we may shift a little bit of my order, but that's okay. We're going to talk Dynamo starting 11. I promised since we didn't get to it last week, we would get to it this week. So Dynamo 11, it is definitely on the order this week. We're going to talk about that difference in training. That came out as of Monday when the team officially started training, and it has me definitely excited for this season. We're going to talk Dynamo Draft Picks. Mark did his research, which I'm glad because I didn't research all that much, but I have some stuff to talk about. Specifically related to our third round draft pick in our goalkeeper from Notre Dame, Duncan Turnbull. Want to talk about him for a minute. And then we're going to talk about college soccer, kind of diving in a little bit to that. I got something I want to talk about related to that I saw come across my timeline today as well. And then finally, I said we would talk about it this week. We're going to talk about it this week. I don't care if it pushes us to 3 hours. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Houston Dash. And they deserve to be talked about. And it's not just about Kalia Ohai. I mean, JJ Watt's girlfriend. Sorry, or fiance. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about improvements on defense, the ones that they've made. Does that really help the team? Is that going to make the team better? We're going to talk about offensive firepower without Kalia Ohai. We're going to talk about the two waved dash players today, and we're going to talk about the draft picks. And then also 3 dash players were called up to the Canadians women's national team for Olympic qualifying. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to talk about USWNT national team Olympic qualifying coming up very, very soon. Make sure you get your tickets if you haven't already here in Houston. That's going to be amazing. I can't go, but for those that can, it's going to be amazing. And also the Dynamo and our Dash, and I still don't know if they do, Dynamo/Dash. I don't know if they still do, but they had a promotion. If you buy a ticket to the U.S. Women's National Team Olympic qualifying here in Houston on whatever day that is actually happening, you could get a second ticket free for the same match to bring a friend or something of that nature. So definitely make sure you guys hit that up and take a look at what's going on with that. But obviously a lot to talk about. We are open, as always, to if you guys talk about stuff in chat, we will bring it up. But we are definitely going to hit everything tonight that we talked about, what we want to talk about. And I am certain that there will be plenty else that gets talked about because that's how we roll here on Gen Orange. Now, with that being said, make sure you do us a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. Help us get a little buzz going for the show. Last week was absolutely amazing. I know I echo this sentiment when I say this, Mark, but I'm sure you'll feel the same way. Last week was phenomenal for us. Probably our best show to date. Almost, I think I don't even have to say probably. It was without a doubt one of our best shows to date. Everybody who interacted and engaged with us last week, thank you so much. It really did make the show that much better. It elevated the show. And frankly, the numbers definitely bear that out. So guys, thank you very much. And hey, keep pushing. It's definitely making a difference and it's helping us tremendously. So we appreciate it. With that being said, Mark, are you ready to dive into Chicharito a little bit?
Well, before we go into Chicharito, I just want to say, thank you guys out there, for sure. I mean, I'm like just repeating what Sean said. Last week was really great for us. Slowly but surely, we're getting, to a good little strive. But we're still in preseason mode, so we're still expecting, bigger and better shows from here on out. So just keep on riding with us. But yeah, Sean, so what about Chicharito? You saw the press conference today?
I didn't, and I frankly could care less, right? So I mentioned last week that this to me screams of desperation by the Galaxy, and here's why. This is not a player who is known for his level of effort when it comes to training, his level of effort on the pitch. If it's not his way, don't put everything out there for you. Now, where this is really seen right now is this week, actually, I think it was earlier today, Chicharito, prior to the press conference, released on Instagram a couple of Instas, and he was talking about how he intends to, the exact phrasing I guess I should use is, he said, this is a retirement for him. No joke, he actually used the word retirement, and this is him officially retiring the European football dream. I don't know about you, Mark. I hear those words, and to me, that sounds like a player who thinks it's going to be handed to him on a silver platter, who is expecting it to be easy coming into MLS, expects that he's going to succeed in MLS, and probably doesn't intend to put in that max level of effort a guy who is looking at this as a retirement opportunity, is going to be absolutely crushed in MLS. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like it's crazy, man. I saw that YouTube video. I guess he's talking to his dad, and he's telling them. He sounds like he's basically crying. No jokes aside. It sounds like he's literally holding back tears from the fact that he can't stay in Europe and that he's coming to MLS because it's really the only opportunity that he really has to play. That's what it sounded like to me. And, and unfortunately, when you have that kind of perception of the league and you think that MLS is still that type of league, it's a shame. And who knows how well he'll do here, or who knows how well he'll grasp the game, or if he'll adapt or whatever. When we were comparing them last week, or when I was comparing them last week, him and Vela, you can see the complete difference, yin and yang, man. I mean, Vela took this opportunity and he grabbed the bull by the horns and just went off. You didn't hear nothing about him talking about retirement league or this or any kind of negative press about MLS. He just came over here and he dominated. And now there's talks about him maybe going back to La Liga, playing for Barcelona, one of the biggest clubs in the world. While Chicharito, on the other hand, is over here, it's holding back tears, talking to his dad about the European dream coming to an end. Yeah, it's coming to an end when you have thoughts like that, and when that's your motive and your notion now. I mean, yeah, obviously it's gonna die if you have no motivation. But if you had the right mindset and you came over here and dominated, dude, I mean, who wouldn't want to call you back up? Or maybe see if they want to come back, if you want to come back to Europe.
No, I mean, I completely agree for sure, and obviously you can tell by my tone that I have zero inclination that Chicharito is going to just light this league on fire. I mean, look at it. The reality is this, right? If this kid is coming in here, and I say kid because he's 31, and to me that's a kid. I can't believe I'm saying that, but man, I'm an old guy. But if this kid's coming into MLS at 31, and he's viewing it as his retirement, his swan song, if you will. My problem with that is he's coming in with the expectation that because he's Chicharito, because he's a Mexican National League team player, because he's coming from the Premier League, air quotes there, and La Liga, that he's just going to be a step in front of everybody else. He's going to be better than all the other players. That he's not going to have to work as hard to be as good as he is and has been because it's MLS and that stigma around MLS. And here's what hurts about that for me is the fact that there are players in MLS that have played in other leagues that have come here and lifted MLS up. Zlatan is one of them and has said
MLS
and praised how much quality and talent there is in MLS. Look, Vela has come in here, Zlatan has come in here. These two have lifted the level of play, and they've done it by putting in the effort, by putting in the work, by showing that this is not a league to be trifled with and taken lightly. And then you have Chicharito in here coming in here, and you mentioned that he was basically crying, and his dad was sad because this is basically it for Chicharito, and to me this just reeks of a last ditch money grab. It reeks of a player who's looking to have the easy route out. And let's be fair, has that not always been Chicharito's way? Looking for the next easy score. He's not a guy that looks to put in the effort. He wants to have it easy. Now he went to Premier League to play for West Ham, and what did we see happen? He didn't succeed there. And so what happened? He wanted out, right? He didn't like it, so he wanted out. And where did he go? He went to La Liga, and he couldn't even succeed there. So what is he doing now? He's going to MLS, hoping to succeed here, but he's not going to put in the effort. He's not going to put in the work. So no, there's no doubt in my mind that Chicharito is going to be a bust. It's going to be the most glorious thing to watch for us Dynamo fans because, one, did you see how much money they are paying this guy? Sure, he's going to fill the seats, but if he bombs out and he's not a great player and Galaxy struggle this year, guess what's going to happen? Fans are not going to continue cheering for Chicharito if he's struggling or if he's not playing well. They're going to start booing him. It's going to happen this season because I have that low an opinion of Chicharito coming into MLS. At the end of the day... No, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead. No, see, and going back to what you were talking about, was other global stars coming to the league like Zlatan and even like Rooney, all of them having praise for MLS. Obviously the only thing that they said suck about MLS is the fact that they don't have chartered flights, which I can understand, especially coming from where they come from, and for the pay for the players. But aside from that, I haven't heard any star that's come from across the pond talk negatively about MLS the way Chicharito seems to appear to be talking about MLS. You know, just last year they were talking about him coming to MLS last year or a couple of years back, and he's like, no, I still have a good 3-4 years in Europe. Psh, joke's on you, because next year it happened, and guess what? Guess where you're at? MLS. And it's one of those things where, yeah, he has the resume. I mean, he's played for big clubs and all that good stuff, but like you were saying before, he doesn't put the effort in. Look where he landed in Manchester United, right? He was doing great as a super sub, and if if he really wanted to put in the work, he could have pushed to be a starter. You know, like I don't remember the year he got loaned out to Madrid, but during that year he loaned out to Madrid because he cried about playing time. Got hurt for United, and wide open was the striker position, for him to go play, but because he didn't have the patience, nor did he have the fortitude and attitude to keep fighting and keep pushing for that starting 11 job at Man U, he got loaned out to Real Madrid, where he sat on the bench even longer. And then I think the only place he really did okay was at in the Bundesliga with Bayern. I forget the club name, but yeah, that's the only place he did well. And then when he came back to the Premier League to try to prove the Premier League wrong with West Ham, because he didn't have the same quality of players around him, he couldn't achieve, he couldn't succeed, and obviously he got benched because if you're not scoring goals, guess what? You sit on a bench, you ride the bench. In Premier League, they don't care if you make £10,000 a week or if you make £100,000 a week. Whoever's scoring goals is going to play.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely. No, I was just going to say you're absolutely right. Right, in Premier League, it's all about form. In La Liga, it's all about form. It doesn't matter the name attached to you. If you come in and you are not playing well, neither of those leagues are going to sit there and continue to trot you out there. They're going to stick you on the bench, and that's exactly what happened to him in Premier League. It's exactly what happened to him in La Liga. If he had gone to Bundesliga or any other league in the world, he would have been the same way. The only leagues where it doesn't matter is MLS, China Super League, and maybe the Turkish league, right, where they're going to trot you out no matter how bad you are because they're looking for names to sell tickets. And so, and in MLS, we are past that point where we're looking for names to sell tickets. I know that there's going to be some Dynamo fans that hurts to hear that answer, to hear that statement, but the reality is this league is far enough past that point. We are not just about big name players. We're about developing players now. Look, there's a reason why teams are bringing in players that are 20, 21, some 19-year-olds, some 18-year-olds. We're seeing teams bring in players that are young enough that they're just out of that range where they're eligible for that visa, their very first work visa as a player coming into the league at 18, 19 years of age. And frankly, that's exactly what needs to happen. That is what this league needs. The league doesn't need the Chicharitos anymore. I hate to say it because I like the fact that we see some of these bigger names being signed in the league, but the league itself doesn't need them anymore. The league needs the quality of play to go up, which does not necessitate that we have all these old retiring players, retiring especially with Chicharito. I would have much rather Zlatan stuck around another year at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like on my timeline on Twitter, I follow a lot of rumors and all this stuff, a lot of MLS accounts that follow the rumors and what's going on and all this stuff. And I get excited when I see, teams going out after these U20 Argentine kids or U20, Colombian kids, or even kids that have already cracked the senior teams like LAFC did last year with Brian Rodriguez from Uruguay. It's I prefer that type of player right now, especially to get MLS to the next level instead of aging Nani or whatever. Don't get me wrong. Like Sean said, I'm happy when those players come over, because obviously I've watched those players for numerous amount of years from in Europe, and obviously I'm a fan of those players. Whether I've been against them or whether I root for them, I'm a fan a certain type of way. So I'm excited to be able to see those players come to BBVA and be able to watch them in person, right? But aside from that, and I hate to give props to this because I mean they're spending money, but I love the way Inter Miami's going along about building their first team. They're going for these young 19, 20-year-old South Americans, Now, obviously, they're going to dash a couple of, veteran players with MLS experience. And, yeah, you hear about them trying to go after Luis Suarez or Cavani or whoever, that big name, whatever, And that's obviously going to be the case for that type of team because of the backing that it has. But the way they're building the rest of the roster, the 90% of that roster, that team, regardless if it gets that big name star, that team is going to be stacked and is going to be a well-balanced team. It's not going to need the leverage of a Chicharito with LA Galaxy, where like if Chicharito if he gets hurt and he's out for the year, guess what? Who do you have as his backup? You don't have anybody. You don't have anybody to take over that spot that huge hole that he's left now. They were scrambling to find who they're going to replace Zlatan with because they didn't have nobody behind because there was no thought of like, oh, well, what if Zlatan's going to stay? Zlatan loves it here. No, Zlatan didn't like it. I mean, he loved it here, but he still had an itch for Europe. So, or maybe some personal issues like with Rooney.
And here's the reason. Here's the reason this is a desperation signing, and here's the reason why LA Galaxy had to be desperate. They had no choice because they're competing against LAFC in their own city to draw fans in their own city. And we've seen what LAFC have done. Now, granted, I think LAFC did it very well. I think they did it because they had the right coach. I think the players definitely help, but the right coach goes a really long way, and we cannot dismiss that fact that Bob Bradley made that team that much better. We look at teams like Inter Miami. As long as they have the right coach in place, it's going to work. We look at Atlanta United. Tata, when he was in place, fantastic team. Tata leaves, and they start to struggle a little bit, right? Out of the gate, first 4 months of the season, they were a complete crapshoot. And then they start getting a little bit better towards the end of the season because they start adapting a little bit more to De Beer's kind of style and play. But I think at the end of the day, are they going to be a great team this year? I don't know. I think they've lost a lot more than they've gained this year in terms of Atlanta United. I guess we'll see when it comes to the actual matches, but I don't think they're the same powerhouse that they've been in years past. Now, Inter Miami, I think they've brought in a lot of great players. I think they've brought in a lot of high-level talent, or at least players that have high-level ceilings. Now, just because you have a high-level ceiling doesn't mean that potential sees itself out. A perfect example of that is Barco from Atlanta United. The kid has been hit or miss about half the time. He's not this player that's consistent by any stretch of the imagination, and yet he's talked about as the second coming in terms of Atlanta United because they spent so much money to get him. But how much money they spent for him and what they've gotten out of him, not even remotely close to the same thing. But Arthur Blank can afford to do that because he has the NFL-level deep pockets to spend that kind of money. He's competing from a monetary standpoint and a financial standpoint at the Premier League level. And unfortunately, most teams in MLS, and I'm saying most because on average this is true and accurate, most teams are competing more at a U.S. soccer level in terms of finances. It's a completely different ballgame. There are some teams that have the money. Arthur Blank, Inter Miami, LAFC, New York a little bit, but even you see New York Red Bulls, they're starting to pull away from those superstars, and they're starting to what? They're starting to focus more on their academy, on their youth. FC Dallas, sure, they might bring in one name, maybe two names a year, maybe, and even then they're not names. They're just players that are expected to have good seasons and expected to be great players because of who they're attached to. At the end of the day, that's what the Dynamo are trying to get to. That's what this process has been all about. That's what the focus has been since since Matt Jordan took over, is they've wanted to build the system up at the academy level to bring in academy players. Now, I'm focusing on this so hard because someone said something in chat that absolutely puts a smile on my face. HTX Fresh says, I was there to watch Cesar Cordova, and he's talking about academies, the academy team. Said the kid's 15 years old and already playing with the U19s. He's already played with the national team, and he thinks he's going to be a future signing. He says Danny Rios will probably be signed too if he does well during these trainings with the first team. Here's the thing. Tab Ramos has brought players in from the academy to train with the senior team, to train with the Toros, because guess what? The Toros are also training with the senior team right now. You have every level of the Dynamo organization training on the same pitches at the same time right now during preseason training camp. As they're ramping up for their heavy preseason, Tab is getting an opportunity to see players at every level across the board. They're training the same system. This has now come out that they're changing the system in the academy. Every level of the academy is going to play the same way, the same style, the same formation, the same tactics and approach as they do at the very top level here with the Dynamo senior team. This is what I've wanted. This is my heart blood. This is what gets me fired up in a very positive way, because finally we are playing it the same way through and through. We are starting to see the Dynamo focus this in a way that academy players actually have a real shot of being able to see first team minutes this season, maybe not until next season, but have a shot to see some minutes this season. That excites me. That excites me to no end. That to me is worth more money than bringing in a retiring 35-year-old star from the Premier League or from La Liga or from Bundesliga or from the South American Colombian League or the South American Argentinian League. It's worth way more than that.
And I think what people are losing sight of is in soccer, there's many ways to succeed. You know, all these teams have fork in the road. You know, you have your teams that are going to spend big. You know, they're going to buy all these players. They're going to buy and spend because they get the money from revenue, TV deals, or whatever they get their money from. But you have other teams where they build. They go and scout, and they go look for these kids that can play. They train them, and they progress them through the levels of academy to hopefully make it the first team. And then, you know, they make it to the first team, and then some of them stay, some of them get sold to the bigger clubs to go buy. But clubs like those still
was that an NSYNC reference? Hold on, was that an NSYNC reference, Mark? No, that was an NSYNC reference, dude. Come on now.
BUI.
Oh, okay, all right.
But you know, around the world, you can take big clubs, you know, from South America, which right now it seems like MLS is raiding South America. Big clubs like River Plate, Boca Junior, Penal, and Uruguay. These clubs are getting players bought up from MLS clubs, and these are clubs known globally. So obviously, it's a food chain, man. And MLS and some MLS clubs and Dynamo's going to be probably part of these clubs. They have to build through the academy, and that's not a bad way. It's not a bad way at all to make this team successful for the long run. Build through the because come on, Callow. But like I said, you know, building from within and building from your homegrown players and your academy, it's not wrong. I know people want that flashy signing, big name, and all that stuff. And if it ever comes, great. We'll embrace it, and I'm sure we'll have a show about it, and we'll be applauding the Dynamo front office if it fits the scheme of the team, you know. But until that comes, I'm happy to see these kids getting a chance to practice with the first team, and hopefully when preseason starts and they play and they show that they have enough quality to make some noise and maybe make the 18 for the 18 player selection for the first game, we'll see. Who knows? Marcelo Palomino, he's one of those that people are really thinking that he's going to be a first team Dynamo player this season. Danny Rios maybe a little further on, but I'm sure that we'll see him play a US Open Cup game or two. You know, I'm not against this. And
so
I think, hold on, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead.
For most fans out there, you know, I think they agree with the approach that Dynamo that the Dynamo are taking, especially because of the financial backing that we have. We can't go out there and compete with Inter Miami, with Arthur Blank and Atlanta United. We're not spending like the big premier clubs. We're doing it like Ajax
and Leicester City, like we talked about last week.
And Leicester City for sure. And where are those clubs at? Those clubs are in the top tier of their respective leagues.
I want to give a shout out real quick. There are a number of people right now. Just chat is hopping. You guys can see it on the screen, man. This is probably the most active chat has been since we've switched to Discord, and it is just flying. I'm having trouble keeping up. I don't know about you, Mark, but if
I just need to make a reference to to 90s boy band.
Well, I mean, you did. That wasn't my fault. But guys, if you are not already in our Discord, and you were watching the show, and for those who are unable to because they're watching on their phones, we're working on it. We're going to figure out something. Might be a move to another streaming option. I don't know. I'm working on it, but I'll figure something out. But for those that aren't and can join because you're at a laptop or near a desktop or whatever, hit up our Discord, man. It is a fun time in there. There are a lot of good people that love to talk Dynamo. And look, our goal, our focus for our Discord specifically is we want it to be a place of positivity, inclusivity. We want everybody to know they're welcome. We want every opinion to be welcome, but at the same time, we want to make sure that people keep it positive. We want to look at the positive about the Dynamo. Look, we're fans first. Sure, we're going to have our heartaches. We're going to have our frustrations, and we'll be the first ones that'll rip on the team when they struggle, if they struggle. But at the same time, when there's not a reason to specifically be upset at the team, we're going to call it out. And we're going to be very fair about it. We're going to be open. We're going to let the team do what the team does because that's our approach. That's my approach. Mark may be a little bit different, but that's my approach to how I want things to work. And I want it to be positive, guys. I want to keep it positive and inclusive.
For sure. I mean, and if you totally disagree with what I'm saying or Sean saying, feel free to post it on the chat, and we'll go back and forth about it, and like not everybody's gonna agree. There's some things I don't agree with Sean. I mean, I don't understand how he's a Spurs fan. Come on, who's really a Spurs fan?
Look, okay, Mark's a Gooners fan. That's enough in and of itself to make me want to kick him off the show. But yet we still find a way to open ourselves to and be willing to listen to each other, even though we're both very, very, very adamant about our beliefs. And I'm right and he's wrong, and he knows it. It's okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, guys, this is an open forum. We're all fans, that we all have love and support for the Dynamo. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and otherwise, we wouldn't have this podcast going on. But yeah, just feel free to put your opinions. Just be positive about it. Just be don't come in here dissing somebody or anything like that. Just positive vibes.
I also want to say something, and this is really important, guys. I appreciate, and I know Mark feels the same way, we appreciate you guys being active during chat every week because it really does make this show go by a lot faster. I mean, look, we're already 30 minutes in, and we've only hit maybe one of our topics for the week. Like, this is going to be a 3-hour show at this rate, and I love it. I'm totally okay with it. It is a blast. It is fun for us. But if you guys weren't there, trust me, this show would be boring. We would be very tired every week. You guys give us energy. You guys give us that passion to keep going. And so thank you guys. Thank you for being involved with the Discord. Thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys for following us on Twitter, following us on social media, both the Generation Orange account, which is at Gen Orange Radio, and our individual Twitters. I don't know Mark's off the top of my head, but mine is at Sean Ringrose. Mark's, what is yours?
Segovia.
Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. We are talking as much as we can. I can tell you next week I'm going to be pretty quiet. I got a lot of stuff work-wise going on next week. May or may not be a show. Stay tuned. But I could promise you guys that I'm going to do my best to tweet as much as I can, to chat as much as I can. But guys, we value you guys so much. With that being said, I want to say this too. Thank you to guys like Cisco, HTX Fresh, Callow, Brian, George. There's a whole host of names that I could read through that have not only been active this week, but have been active in previous weeks. HTX Fresh, thank you for joining us this week. But there's so many people that have latched on to us and latched onto our show to help us grow. And I just want you guys to know that means a lot to me personally, to see you guys put that level of trust and that level of support in us. Because it's not the easiest thing in the world to support people that are just trying to start something new. Yeah, there was something there before, but we were kind of having to start from scratch, and Mark can attest to this. We basically did. And the reason I'm talking about this right now is because, guys, I know I mentioned this earlier, we had our best week, but I legitimately mean this. We went from 20 followers to 33 followers in 1 week, and for us, that's a damn good week. So thank you guys so much, those of you especially that have poured into this and helped us and have offered advice and things like that. It really does mean the world to us, and we couldn't do this. We wouldn't do this. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that's enough thank yous, but thank you again. And just know that we really do appreciate it, and we hope you guys stick around because there's a whole lot more to come.
We're good. They get the idea.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good, Sean. I understand. But so let's get on this issue that you had about these fans.
Oh, you want me to go from one extreme of emotion to the other extreme of emotion? All right, cool. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
I want to hear you out. See what you got to talk about. I know we talked about it a little bit off air, but let the other people know. Say what you got to say.
Look, we've beat around the bush on this issue in particular for quite a while, right? There's this prevailing hatred from some people in particular, and I'm not going to call people out in particular because, like I said, I want to be positive. I want to be focused on the right things, but there's definitely hatred out there, and I think at the end of the day, we got to stop this hate. I don't care where it's coming from. I don't care why it's there. We got to stop hating, man. We absolutely, as a fan base, have to come together. And if there's ever a time for this fan base to come together, regardless of how the team plays, it's right now. Why do I say that? We've got Hustletown supporters. We've got the Surge. We have Bandera Negra. We've got LEB and TA trying to work together to create something absolutely amazing. We have the front office reaching out to supporters groups, working with the supporters groups right now. They're working on new chants. They're working on new songs. They're working on TIFOs, multiple TIFOs this year. They're expanding the supporter section. Guys, if there was ever a time for us as fans to embrace this organization, regardless of how we feel about spending, but from a business aspect, if we were to ever embrace this club and show that Houston has a passionate soccer fan base, the time is now. And look, I've said it before on other shows, we cannot sit around and expect someone else to be the one to help the Dynamo grow. We can't be the type of people, the type of fan base that says, man, I'm just happy to go to the matches. If you're going to the matches and you're truly passionate and you call yourself a fan and you're not inviting anybody else to the match, look, you can still invite people to the match. Doesn't mean you have to do it every week, but at least try. There are people out there that are soccer fans of teams over in Europe or teams in Liga MX or teams in La Liga that absolutely would love to have an opportunity to go watch a team here play live, play locally. So take the opportunity, man. Invite them. Get involved. Find ways to bring them to matches. Bring them to events. Bring them to FanFest. Why not bring them to FanFest? Let them have an opportunity to see the team practice, see the team play. There's no better time than now. So I say all that to say this. I hope and I pray that those people who are pissed off because the Dynamo aren't spending money because Darwin Quintero is going to be their big off-season move, I hope they are absolutely just appalled at themselves when the Dynamo have a good start to this season, when the Dynamo have a good season. Here's the problem. This team was a good team at the beginning of last season. They were a pretty damn good team in 2017. Guess what? They're going to be a pretty damn good and pretty good damn team this year too. We have the offensive firepower. We're good enough on defense. We've got enough academy players coming up. We've got enough depth that we're able to do this. I promise you this year is going to be one of the best years that we've seen from the Dynamo in a long time. And it's time to get off this whole I need a big name signing. Because a big name signing puts you in the LA Galaxy realm where you're lucky if you can make the playoffs once in 3 seasons. You're not making MLS Cup final and you know it if you're the Galaxy. All you're trying for right now is just to maintain the fans that you have because you know the rest of your fans are going over to LAFC. Look, that's not our organization. We're better than that. The reason why I'm so fired up right now is because with Austin FC coming into this damn league this year, it is our time to absolutely stick it to them and run them into the ground. Not this year, next year, but you know what I mean. It is our time to run them into the ground, to make their fans hate coming not only here, but make their fans hate that rivalry match every year. I don't know about you, I'm planning to travel to that stadium every year and make sure they hate us. And I mean not hate us in a violent way, but hate us because they know we're going to come in there and run roughshod. Look, that stadium, that's going to become my stadium.
I'm looking forward to going to Austin for that very specific reason. Not, don't get me wrong, I love Austin as a city, but now I have an even greater reason to go over there to be a villain.
Hell yeah. Look, this is the year of Houston villainy, right?
Oh, for sure. We spoke about it last week, but on the chat, I want to give a shout out to Cal about that Tifo idea. So I don't know if it's late in the game or whatever, but if any of the supporter groups out there that are listening, hey, I would run with that idea on the Tifo about making a Chicharito happy retirement Tifo or whatever. I think I sent a description of how I would like to see it. Him holding a cane, hunchback, all brittle and shit. So, excuse me. So, but yeah, man, like you said, I mean, it's one of those things where I know we've been beating around the bush a lot about the dynamo not spinning, and I understand the frustration. I'm not gonna deny, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and be like, I don't get a little bit of, I guess, for lack of a better term, envious of some teams getting certain type of players, but the thing is that we have a winning culture. I mean, obviously the last couple of years have been kind of up and down, but what franchise doesn't have a downtime, and it just so happens to be our time where we're a little bit of a downslide, but with the signings that we have this offseason, with the coach that we brought in, I think we're on an upward swing, and I think we're going to be going up, projecting up and up for the long term. These are long-term moves, before, you hear about them bringing in players, who are, 29, 30 years old, but now we're bringing in players who are 19, 20, aside from Quintero or whatever, and we're bringing in players who are established MLS veterans who are going to bring a certain type of style to the team for the season. They're going to improve where we lacked last season.
No, I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with you. And, the academy keeps being brought up, and I think it's important to bring that back up because it's so imperative that this focus, this approach to soccer here in Houston, it's all about, they call it a partnership of development, right? It's about the entire city, the entire communities that these soccer players are in, especially younger kids, about helping them develop from the youngest levels all the way up, and it not just being the Dynamo's responsibility. And why is that important? Because the Dynamo only have those players for a set number of hours each week, for a set number of hours each day during practice and what have you. It's on their families. It's on the communities that they're in. It's on their friends to help them become better players. Look, Michael Jordan just didn't become a better player because he shot 100 free throws, every night, or 100 3-pointers, or whatever it was that he did. Yeah, he practiced a lot, but he had to practice against other people. You don't become that good and talented of a player by practicing by yourself. You have to practice against other players. And so it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that not only do the great players that are out there, the ones with the high level of talent, not only do they show up, but it requires that some of those other kids that maybe don't think that they're the best, that they show up too, because guess what? They're the ones that push those players that are at the high talent level, push them to that next level. They push them to be the absolute best that they can be.
For sure. But since we're talking about the teams, now that we're talking about the first teams, what do you think about the lineups for this year? Who do you think is going to be the starting 11? Who do you think is going to be contributing more to the team this season? Do you think we're going to have any surprises?
I do. I think that here's my expectation for the starting 11. Goalkeeper ends up being Michael Nelson after this preseason. I think Nelson actually pushes Merritt to the bench pretty consistently. I think our back line ends up being Valentin on the right. I think our center backs will be Fuenmayor and Kiki to start the season. I think that McHugh may push for minutes towards the end of the season. I believe that Lundy has the left back spot pretty much sewn up this season. I think for our DM, you're definitely talking about Vera. I think that by middle of the season to end of the season, I think we see Marcelo Palomino with an opportunity to get some minutes here and there.
I think starts across from him though right now. First game of the season.
From Vera, it's got to be Boney. I just don't think there's anybody else on the squad unless you put Memo there. I just don't think there's anybody else in the squad that can really fulfill that role. Now I do know that that Cabrera has played some DM in his years, so it is possible we could see Cabrera, if he's not starting, maybe play some of those DM minutes. I don't suspect it to be Cabezas. With that being said, though, if he's had a good offseason of recovery and rehab, if Tab Ramos is able to unlock his potential again, then I would be all about seeing him return to the starting lineup if he can be that player.
I don't think Cabezas is coming back.
He's back, I'm pretty sure. He's still on the roster.
Is he? Yeah, because last I heard, the clubs in Colombia were looking back to sign him. So, but keep going. Go ahead. Did I lose you?
Oh, sorry, that was muted. That was my fault. I think we see Cabezas try to compete. I don't know if he has it in him anymore. I guess we'll find out. I do think that we'll see. So I already, my 2 DMs, and then I think we see the season start with Tomas up top in that AM role, attacking mid role. I think at some point in the season we see Memo play there a little bit. I think we see Tommy Mack play there a little bit. I just want to throw it out there. Tommy Mack is back to the full locks. I think that's back to full power Tommy Mack this year. I do think we see Tommy Mack play a much better season than he had last year. We actually have. So that was my attacking mid, starting starters. My wingers, I think there's no doubt it's Quintero and Elise at this point. Memo can push for time out there. Morrow can push for time out there. Maybe Morrow starts out there opposite Elise and Quintero comes off the bench. Maybe they rotate that a little bit. I don't know. But I think there's no doubt we see a rotation of Ramirez and Morrow at center forward. And I think we see a rotation of Elise, Quintero, Morrow, Memo, Hansen out at midfield. I just don't expect a lot of surprises per se, except for except for Valentin pushing Bisama to the bench, at least to start the season.
Okay, so you want to hear mine?
I mean, yeah, you might as well, right?
Yeah, so the only thing that I have to agree with you probably is just I have a little bit of a difference, but the Nelson at goalkeeper, obviously, because he's going to have the full preseason. I don't know how long the paperwork and the visa is going to come in for Marco Maric, for him to have a preseason with us. Granted, I mean, he's been playing with this team that he just left, but he'll be not playing for about 2 months until he gets his paperwork done. So, but aside from that, my back four starting from the left, I have Lundy at the left back. I have Fuenmayor and Kiki for the center backs, and I still have Benzema on the right back over Valentin. My midfield would be Vera, Moss up front, and then I had Cabrera actually as my other DM alongside from Vera. And I think it's already been noted where that they wanted Darwin to be that left winger where like he was with Santos, because that's where he had the most success instead of being that backup second striker or attacking 10 where Tomas is at right now, where I have him right now. But yeah, the top three obviously would be my left would be Darwin, up top Mauro, and right at least. And then the players that I think they need to step up, obviously Valentin, because he can push both Lundy and Benzema because he can play both out backs. Surprise one actually is Pena. A lot of people forgot about Pena. I think he's essential, and I think Tab Ramos knows that he has to put some work into him because, especially with all the rumors flying around about Mauro being gone or leaving or whatever. So if somebody comes in with an offer last minute January and Mauro gets sold, guess who's the backup striker to Christian Ramirez? It has to be Pena. So I think that he's going to put in some work into Pena, and I think this is the year where he has to show why he was brought in. I mean, he's one of those players that we talked about earlier who was playing for the U20s of their respective countries. He's a U20 Venezuelan player, so he has skill. It's just that he's been hurt the last couple of years. But who knows? I think he's gonna be a one that surprises us if he gets time. Obviously, depending on the situation with Mauro and what happens with that. But yeah, Cabrera, I have him at across from Vera right now as the second starting central defensive midfielder. I had Seren there just because he knows the position, everything like that. Bonnie, he's too old, man. I mean, as much as we love him, I don't know how I'm gonna feel if I see him on that starting 11 that first game.
I completely forgot Saren was even on the team.
It's one of those things where, as much as we love Bonnie, and I admit that he's a Dynamo legend. For all the years he's put in, and with the MLS Cups and the U.S. Open Cup title that he brought to the team during his tenure. But at 35, 36 years old, man, I just see him as a spark off the bench for the last 10, 15 minutes. So if I see him in that starting 11, that means that Matt Jordan needs to get out there and scout for the summer and look for that second defensive midfielder.
I mean, I agree. Like I said, I totally had forgotten Seren was still even on the team, and it's not a knock on Seren. I actually think he could be a great player. I think he was just played out of position a lot last year, and he was expected to do more than he was really built to do. And he was played in a role that was not his comfort zone. I think I view Seren more as a true backup to Vera. And I think Cabezas was intended to be that kind of player that would play alongside Seren or play alongside Vera. And when Cabezas got injured, it was just wasn't the same, right? Okay. With that being said, let me ask you this: who are your 2 players or 3 players that you think that aren't currently in your starting 11 that you just gave, who you think could have big impacts for the team this season in particular? You said Pena is one of them. I'm curious about maybe one or 2 other.
Well, not Pena so much. I mean, Pena would be like maybe my third option, but my first 2, obviously Valentine, because I think he's going to be vital for the defense being stronger this season. Because the fact of the matter is, we know Mauro can score double-digit goals. We know Elise can do the same. We know Darwin can do it. So I'm not worried about the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball has been our Achilles heel the last couple of years. And the fact of the matter is that now we have a player in Valentin that can push both Lundy and Bizema to where, like, hey, if you're not playing up to a certain level, you're going to be benched, and this guy's ready to go in. And I like that. Like I said, we need competition in each position, no matter if you're the best, you're quote unquote the best player of the team, or the sorriest player in the team. Every position needs to have battles. My second player would be Cabrera, because I think he for sure stabilizes the center back position. Obviously, if I have him playing defensive midfielder, hopefully that's not too much of a longevity time for that, and he can play central back like he's supposed to. Because obviously, I'm a huge fan of Fuenmayor, and hopefully he grows to another level under Tab Ramos. But if for whatever reason he's not ready yet, Cabrera can slip right in and be played alongside Struna, no problems. And then obviously the whole thing with Palomino. What's he going to bring to the table if he has a great preseason, and Tab Ramos puts him on the first team? What can we expect from this young kid? I mean, I'm excited because this could be our version of Alphonso Davies from, when he was with Vancouver Whitecaps, or Diego Fagundes from, New England Revolution. We've never had really a teenager play for the first team. So it's going to be exciting to possibly have that opportunity.
Stuart Holden, Jeff Cameron would like to beg to differ with you, sir.
Well, Cameron came out, he was 20, I think 21.
Okay, yes, technically.
I don't remember Stu, but I don't remember how old Stu was.
Stu was 18, maybe 18. He was young. He was super young.
Okay.
He was super young.
Okay. Came out of 4-year college though, so I don't think he was a teenager because he was one of those Generation Adidas players that came out of the draft.
Okay, not a teenager. Okay, I'm still thinking younger players. Whatever.
Yeah.
We haven't had an academy player come out and play. How about that?
Memo.
I mean, an academy player come directly from the academy and play. All right. Anyways, enough of that.
If you're trying to be technical.
All right. So my 3 players that I think are going to have an impact this year, or that I could see have a big impact this year, that aren't in my starting 11. I think Palomino's definitely one of those. I think it's an easy pick. I do think Nico Hansen is the second one. And I think my third, I already said Michael Nelson's in my starting 11, right? But I think he's one of those players to keep an eye on because he's good enough to push for that starting role. He's talented enough to push for that starting role. But if he doesn't take that starting role, then look out because Marko Maric is a special player at that point. And I, for one, I don't care whichever one wins it, but whichever one does, that's going to be an impressive player. So those would be the 3, even though technically the one that wins it is going to be the starter. It still is what it is. So let me ask you this. Out of the Dynamo draft picks, Garrett McLaughlin out of SMU, that's a forward. Luca Perpa out of Marquette, who's a midfielder. Kyle Edwards, who's an RGV player out of UT RGV, that's a forward. Which of those 3 do you think has a potential to see any time with the Dynamo, not just this season, but long term?
I mean, obvious choice would be your first round pick, right? That would be the one that you would want since you spend the first round pick on him, right? But quite honestly, if we're just talking out of just pureness, Kyle Edwards. I mean, he's had time with RGV, and he kind of knows what I guess the Dynamo are looking for, even though I guess the communication hasn't really been there the last couple of years. But he's already somebody that has, I guess, a head start as opposed to the other 3 prospects. But in my opinion, I'm really interested in their second round pick, the Luca Perpa kid. He has had a really kind of great collegiate career, even though we know college soccer doesn't really translate to MLS soccer, but he's a interesting guy, interesting player, interesting cat. So I'm gonna put my bet on Luca.
I'm intrigued by Luca, but I'll tell you one player that I know we're not going to have on the roster this year, but I think long term has the possibility to come back to MLS and specifically the Dynamo's Duncan Turnbull. He's currently trialing with a Premier League team at the moment, which is impressive in and of itself to get him in the 3rd round. But that's also why you go ahead and throw a 3rd round flyer on the kid, right? He's trialing with a Premier League team. That's not a surprise. But you throw a 3rd round pick at him, so you retain his rights, even though he hasn't signed a contract since you drafted him. You still retain his rights. So if he comes back to the league, you have first opportunity to sign him to a contract. As long as you've offered him a quote-unquote bona fide contract, then I can tell you the Dynamo did intentionally for the purpose of retaining his rights. They knew he wasn't going to take it, but they wanted it to retain his rights. Look, that's a kid that's absolutely an outstanding goalkeeper, a fantastic goalkeeper, and a leader on and off the pitch. He's got all the kind of prerequisites that you want in a goalkeeper at the highest level, and there's no doubt that is one of the reasons why he's being looked at by a Premier League team and other teams overseas. But that's a kid that he give him time overseas. I'm fine with that. Let him come back in 3-4 years when he's a refined talent that has figured out his game to a solid point. You bring him back, you sign him to a Dynamo contract. You have a goalkeeper for the next 10 years after that, and we've already got two damn good ones, Michael Nelson and Marko Maric. I mean, it's just incredible that Duncan Turnbull was still there in the 3rd round. I was surprised nobody took him before then.
I mean, he has all the physical traits that you want in a goalkeeper. I mean, he's 6'7", 226. So I mean, this guy is huge. He's covering. He's going to play big in that goalkeeping.
He's Joe Willis big.
Yeah. So with more athleticism. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, it could be one of those things where it was a Palomino situation where he he went on trial at Porto and clubs in Spain. This kid is obviously on trial in England with Premier League clubs, and just because you go on trial with clubs overseas doesn't mean you end up being with that club. It just gives you more exposure, and it gives you a chance to train and get taught by other coaches around the world. And for whatever reason he doesn't get signed on with a Premier League club, well, he own his rights. And hey, now we got 3 goalkeepers who have high ceilings, and there we go. So you get to pick the best of the litter.
So let me ask you this question. On Soccer Matters this week, Jordan, or last week, this week, I don't know, one of the two. Matt Jordan said the front office feel like Quintero was their kind of big off-season key player acquisition, and they consider him as a DP caliber player, with the insinuation that they aren't intending to sign any big names before the season. To you, Mark, specifically, is that enough? Have they made enough moves, or do you want to see something more? I mean, I can tell you the answer to that question is, of course, I always want to see more. But do you think that is enough in and of itself with the move for Cabrera, the move for Valentin, and signing Maric? Are those enough moves when all of that is put together to take this team to where they want to go?
Look, and that same show, Glenn Davis is showing Soccer Matters yesterday. They played a clip of Tab Ramos talking about if they were going to bring any more players, and he obviously said, to my knowledge, no.
No, that's it. It is it. I'm just saying it is it.
The reason he chose to come coach the Dynamo is because he loved the players that the Dynamo had. He loved the potential of this team. And he knows that he can unlock certain things of certain players and take them to the next level. Like you stated earlier, this club is not a bad team. They started off great. We had the best start in club history last season, in the first half of the season. Obviously the Gold Cup and everything else derailed all that, but people forget that. I mean, we were 7-3-3 or something like that in the first half of the season. That's a great start. We were up there first, second, third. And people forget about that, obviously, because it came down so quickly and it crashed so quickly and it burned so quickly that that's a long memory. But for me, I'm satisfied. They were looking at Darwin 2 years ago before he signed with Minnesota, and they were looking to bring him in as a DP back then. And 2 years later, they got him, and they got him for cheaper than what they were going to spend to bring him into MLS. So, and I don't think Darwin's lost that much skill within those 2 years, because obviously, I mean, he's played pretty good for Minnesota United. I mean, it's just that for whatever reason, he played out of position as that second striker behind. I forgot who they had up top, but in Minnesota United, but that's not his position. His position has always been the left winger. That's always been the best spot for him when he played with Santos and he played with Club America. So, and Tab knows that, and he's like, you know what? When he came in, he knew the situation with Romel Kyoto was a one that's gonna probably end up him being traded. And when the opportunity of getting Darwin came, he's like, well, look, grab me this player, because we're going to lose a player of high quality in Kyoto, regardless of what anybody says about Kyoto. He's a player that has tons of talent, but we're going to lose him. I need somebody to replace that, because if I'm going to run this 4-3-3, guess what? I need speed and skill out wide, and I can't just have it from the right side. I need it from the left side too. So I'm happy with it. And like I said, people and fans don't need to be so worried, because I mean, the January transfer window, it is what it is. You bring in players to help create competition for the rest of the players that are on your squad. The summer transfer window, on the other hand, depending on where the Dynamo are at during that time period, yeah, maybe I might want to see a significant signing depending on where we're at, especially if we're fighting for a top 3 position in our conference. Yeah, I want to see the Dynamo go for it. And obviously, if we're not doing so well, then maybe they bring in a player who can help us get over the hump and maybe make the 6th or 7th seed in the playoffs. So, but regardless of the fact, this winter transfer window, I'm satisfied.
So I was going to say, if the Dynamo come out and they have a first half that is good enough to keep them in the first, second, third place in Western Conference, do you, at that point, let me ask you this very real question. At that point, do you look to try to sell Morrow on? You're not likely to sell, at least in the summer window, unless it's for very cheap, because why would a team pay for him in the summer window when they can get him in the winter window for free? That's just a couple months later.
See, and that's where I go with the whole Peña thing. The thing is that regardless of what's going on with the team, Mauro's a good quality player. He's a great quality player. He's of an age where he needs to be playing top tier soccer. Obviously European soccer. And there's always going to be clubs hovering around him, always, regardless of the fact. And we can't allow the situation to become another Albert Elise situation. And unfortunately, like I said prior, we're one of those clubs that we're going to be developing players, building them up, bringing them the first team, and then moving them on. And Mauro's that player. He didn't come through our academy, but he came at a very young age from another country. We developed him, and now he's a top-tier goal scorer in MLS. And a lot of clubs in Europe have taken notice of that, and they see his age. They see that he's potentially about to make his debut for the Colombian national team. So they want Mauro. I don't blame these clubs hovering around him, trying to get him. If the offer, like I said, for me, if the offer is significant enough to where you got to do it. No, I mean, if one of the French clubs that were rumored during this transfer window come in and say, you know what, they're battling amongst each other, and they obviously know that they're what place they're in the table for, and they obviously know that they need a striker. You know what? If somebody comes in and tells me 12 mil for Mauro, thank you for your services. You'll always be forever orange. Good luck in French.
After you finish your contract with France, come back and let us know, because we're going to sign you back over here when you retire.
You'll always be part of the Dynamo family. You can come back anytime. You could Rico Clark this
for 12 million. I'm showing him the door personally.
But you never know, because Mauro can have a great first half of the season. I wouldn't be surprised in this scheme that Tab is cooking up if Mauro's a double-digit goal scoring by halfway through the season. It's very easy with the services that he's going to get from Darwin and Elise. And if the Mas somehow improves, or even improves a little bit, or and the thing about Tomas is that he's not a bad player at all. He just needs a little bit more developing and a little bit more coaching. And if Tab gives him that and it takes him to another level, man, Tomas Martinez can be a good number 10 for us. I don't want to say great because I don't want to hype him up too much, but he can be a good number 10 for us. And if you have Tomas, Darwin, and Elise feeding the ball to Mauro, I can see him at 10 goals by 10, between 10 to 15 games in the season. Why not?
Not only is it, not only that, but it's going to be a fresh Mauro, because he has a player in Christian Ramirez that can come in and give him rest. He doesn't have to play every match like he had to last season, because he was the only option available. We can also play a 4-4-2 if the situation calls for it. We can throw extra strikers in the game. Now, why is that important? Because, look, if Mauro's coming out and he's scoring double-digit goals in the first half of the season, that puts him as one of the elite strikers in MLS, period. There's no questioning it anymore. That is a solidified definite at that point. Why is that important? Let me ask you a question. What is a DP levels player that's a big name going to get you in MLS as a striker? Double-digit goals halfway through the season? That's it. So that whole idea that we have to have a big name player, it no longer matters, because the players we have are good enough. We just need the right coach, and I really, truly, honestly believe we finally freaking have that coach. Tab Ramos, without a doubt, is going to be able to unlock these players, and you said it yourself. Tab Ramos is, if he is able to unlock 1, 2, or 3 of those players to really get them to that next level, look out. This team's attack is absolutely stacked. And yet there's people out there complaining that it's not good enough.
Sean, If you look at the top 10 goal scorers of the last season, or even if you go the last 2 seasons, obviously you're going to see Zlatan, you're going to see Joseph Martinez, Carlos Vela, right? If you put a value, of monetary value, per goal, that those goals cost a lot of money. A lot of money. And you have Mauro Manotes, who's right there on tier 1 was Zlatan, Joseph, and Vela, right? Mauro is tier 2, and that's not a bad tier. Every kind of club is looking to buy a striker, a 22, 23-year-old striker from Colombia, and we have one of those, and he's doing really well in the league that's growing and is getting more significant in global soccer. MLS is growing. MLS is, on the contrary to what many people might think, and for those who still think it's a retirement league, it's not. It's really not. You see a lot of South American players with top talent coming their way to get to Europe.
And a good Go ahead.
Dude, a young South American, especially somebody coming up through the River Plate Academy, Boca Juniors, or in Brazil with Santos or Flamengo or whatever, those players didn't want to leave those clubs unless they're going to European clubs. Now they're going to MLS clubs and then going to Europe.
A good example.
That's great. I don't mind being that middle man.
No, and that's what MLS should be right now. A good example of that is Miguel Almiron with Atlanta United, and what he's doing now with Newcastle. It's amazing to watch, and it shows the talent and quality of that player. Not only that, but LAFC are getting offers for De Rossi, and they're obnoxious, stupid, absurd levels of money we're talking about. Look, what Almiron went for last year, Mara was capable of the same numbers in MLS that Almiron put up, and yet Mara was being talked about for $10, $15, $20 million less as a transfer fee. That I don't get.
See, look, the difference is, okay, with Miggy, I mean, obviously Atlanta bought him from Lanús in Argentina. I think they bought him for like $8-9 mil transfer fee, and they flipped him for 24, which is great, When the Dynamo brought Mauro in, I think Mauro cost less than $300,000. If that, I can't even remember what his fee was. I know it was in the hundreds of thousands. But
it was like 450, 500, but even still.
Okay, let's say 500 just to make an easy number, right? If you sell Mauro for 10 mil, dude, I mean that's the type of business that the Dynamo should be doing. That's comparable to what Atlanta's doing with buying players like Miggy Almiron and selling them off for 20 mil. You buy them at 5, 6, 7, 8 mil. You sell them off for 20, 25 mil. The same thing. They can sell Joseph Martinez right now, which they brought in for, I think, 10 or 11 mil. They can sell them off. And I'm hearing that Newcastle probably wants to pair them back up again because there was such a great tandem in Atlanta United. They could probably sell them for 25, 30 mil because he's a proven goal scorer and he's already had European ties. And the same thing goes for like Diego Rossi at LAFC. I'm here. Last I heard was like almost 20 mil from Italy, trying to get him to Italy from LAFC. That's the type of business that those big clubs spending Premier League money, air quotes, have to do. For a club like the Dynamo that are over here looking for diamonds in the rough, when we spend $500,000 transfer fee on a 18, 19-year-old kid from Colombia or Uruguay or Paraguay or wherever, and we can flip him and make 5, 6, 10 mil for this guy, that means the scouting department, the coaches, the trainers, the strength coaches, everybody's doing a great job if you're getting that kind of return back on those type of players. And Mauro is the poster child for the Dynamo of what they want to do.
I mean, I completely agree, and that's the Ajax approach. That's the Leicester City approach. I mean, there's plenty of teams around the world that have that same approach. Where, look, they're going to be the ones that find the players that still need to develop. They're going to develop them just enough to get that intrigue by a Premier League club or a La Liga club or a Bundesliga club. Let them transfer over there, and they're going to make $10, $12, $15 million on the transfer. And the thing is that you can do that, and you can afford to swing and miss on a few players. If you're pulling the Atlanta United and you're spending 12 to 13 million per player, and you swing and you hit on 1, maybe 2 out of 4, Problem is you missed on half of your players. That means you've just sunk $20 million, to get $20 million back. You're at a net zero at that point. You haven't actually gained anything. Whereas if you're spending 300, 400, 500,000, even up to $1 million, and you're getting 10 million for a player, guess what? I can swing at 3 players and I can miss on all 3 and I'm still making the money.
Because you think about it with Atlanta, for example, because I mean they're just regardless of what you want to say, they're the premier team, right now for MLS, right? So
I don't know about that, but sure, we'll go with that.
I mean, but they hit with Miggy, right? They brought in Pity Martinez, who was the South American Player of the Year. He won Copa Libertadores. He won the division and for with River Plate, that year. He was the big boss in that region of the country, right? They brought him in for I think 15 mil. Right now, if they try to flip him, they probably get 15 mil. But the thing is that 15 mil, when you get 15 mil for MLS, people are getting cuts of that 15 mil. It doesn't just goes directly to the clubs. So they're gonna get at a loss.
It's 75%. Yeah, it's 75% of the transfer fee after TAM and GAM are taken out. And yes, what most people don't realize is that when you sell a player on, whatever you've spent for them in terms of TAM and GAM, or actually I think it's TAM specifically, is taken out of that player's transfer fee that you use to sell them on. And you only get 75% to begin with. So you're getting less than 75% of that transfer fee to begin with.
So going back to that, I mean, and going back to what you were saying, when you're spending big like that, and like I said, Arthur Blank, like we said prior, he has deep pockets. He has NFL money. So obviously he can hit and miss a couple times, and it's no big deal to him. But when you're in a situation like the Dynamo, this is whether it's Elise or Mauro, whichever one of those two gets sold first, this is going to be our first big transfer outwards, because we haven't had anybody buy a Dynamo player for any kind of notable money prior to either Elise or Mauro being sold. So this is gonna be the first stone laid out for this project that Matt Jordan has always spoken about on Glenn's show and whatever other venues that he's talked about it. This is the first thing where either Elise or Mauro is going to be the poster child of this process that they want to do, where they want to bring in young players, develop them, sell them on. The Dynamo are basically, for lack of a better term or lack of a better analogy, they're going to be a sweatshop where they're going to be bringing in young players, developing them, shipping them out. It's going to be a factory. That's what they're going to be doing. Some of these players, you're going to love them and you're going to grow to love them, but they're going to be sold. Some of the players, they're going to grow. They're not going to develop as much as they thought they would, and they probably stay with the Dynamo for a longer time. Who knows? But this is going to be the beginning of a process that the Dynamo are looking forward to, that they basically have to be in tune with because of the financial because of the lack of financial backing that the team has from the owners. So just look out for that. Like I said, this is the first of many.
I want to point out Micho Rizzo asked, he said, when is Elise's contract over this summer? The answer is no. It's actually technically over at the end of the season. At the end of 2020. Yeah, so technically we have him signed through the end of the season due to a contract extension. He signed his second or third year here, but at the same time, the team is going to look to try to transfer him. It makes sense if they can, because now is when you try to recoup as much as you can out of that transfer. And look, traditionally when the Dynamo have made an impact signing, it has not been in the winter window. It's been in the summer window. And that's because they anticipate bringing that player in, giving him time with the senior team, and then expecting that they're not going to be, that immediate impact player. It's going to take him a little time to adjust. Christian Ramirez was kind of the opposite of that, where that kid came in and just tore it up, in my opinion, in terms of what we were expecting out of him. I didn't expect him to have any impact, so for him to come in and just be unbelievable was amazing. But it just goes to show you, if that's the approach that they're going to have and they're going to sell players on, then it's going to happen in the summer window, and we have to be okay with that. Look, if the team is doing great, I'm okay if they are selling players on, because at that point it shows that there's enough interest in the rest of the team that there's enough interest in those same players that I can sell them on for that money, and I can find their replacements in the same window without too much of an issue. I saw someone say, I need to see that those South America trips from Matt Jordan pay off, and I don't think you can argue that they haven't at this point. Mauro Manotas, Albert Lee's technically not South America, but Mauro Manotas, Tomas Martinez. You can say what you want about Tomas Martinez; he's still considered to be a very good player. Whether we see it that way or not, just because the guy isn't scoring a bunch of goals or isn't making a lot of assists, I chalk a lot of that up to the fact that he had to play under Wilmer for 2.5 seasons.
And also, I mean, we also got to keep in mind that this is a start barely. I mean, process that they're going through is barely just begun. We're barely in the infancy of this new project that they're trying to do. Obviously, what was going on before, we were stuck in MLS 1.0, quote unquote, for a very long time. The whole thing with Dominic Kinnear, we had that was I guess kind of dynasty like, 4 MLS finals, 2 MLS cups, all that great stuff. But we were so stuck in that way because it was going so well for us that we kind of fell behind the newer teams coming in and doing what they did, and then everybody just kind of passes along. That's why we're in this stint that we're in where we're not that good of a team right now, right? But we're gradually catching up, and it's not going to be one of those things where it's just money thrown at it where we can just progress quickly. It's going to take some time, and people need to have a little bit of patience. And I know, and I understand as a fan, patience sometimes is hard, especially losing for the last 5 seasons and not making playoffs, and I understand the frustration, trust me, but we need to give it time and this new process. And like this, they talk about the South American trip, that just happened. Yeah, they went to go scout. You know how many teams send scouts to South America and don't sign a player for years and years? They scouted them once, and that was it. And then you might not hear about that player till 2 years from now because they scout young players at 17, 18 years old, and they might not sign until they're 2021.
So I want to.
That's always.
I was just going to say I want to point out a fallacy in the big level signing focus by some fans. You rooted for the Houston Astros and didn't care that they didn't have a big name player going into the season where they finally in the middle of the season acquired Justin Verlander. You didn't care that the Houston Texans haven't actually done hardly anything for the last, since they started their tenure in NFL, and yet you still cheer for them. You still watch their games every Sunday or every Monday night, depending on when they play. And yet you're going to bitch and moan about the Dynamo because they're not signing a big-name player? Newsflash, doesn't matter. They're still one of the better teams in this city. Support them anyways. Support them in spite of that fact. Because the fact is, there are players we're supporting on this team. And that's what we're trying to get at. This team is very good. This team has a ton of talent. There's a huge amount of possibility in this team. It's on Tab Ramos to unlock all of it. Wilmer Cabrera, he succeeded in bits and pieces, but could never figure out how to fully complete that puzzle, right? Now, Tab Ramos has the opportunity to show that he can, and he's the type of coach, because of how he approaches things, that I believe he can unlock those things, that he can bring those players into the next kind of generation of MLS, that this is going to spark kind of a different mindset from some MLS teams. Look, we're going to be the team, in my opinion, we're going to be the team at the end of the season that other MLS teams are trying to figure out how to unlock. We're going to be the team that other teams are sitting there going, I don't like playing against them because they run us into the ground, match in and match out. I'm excited for what Tab Ramos wants to be in terms of play style, formation, tactical approach, those sorts of things. I'm a fan of it because what he's going to do is he's going to cause other teams to have to react to us instead of us reacting to them. And I feel like under Wilmer, we should have reacted to other teams, but we never did because Wilmer was so dead set in playing his specific way that it just never worked out.
And people underestimate a good coach, a great coach. Coaching can help out a lot. It can hide a lot of deficiencies. Deficiencies that the team might have. So especially if a coach that knows how to play the formation right, change the formation, or put the players in the right places to best succeed. The thing with Wilmer that we always had. That I always had a bit of a gripe with was the fact that he played players out of position, and then he would rest players out of nowhere for no reason, for no particular reason. Sometimes, especially when you had games coming up that meant something. I never understood the reasoning for him resting the players the way he did. And especially our top players, these players that obviously model and athletes that are being scouted by European teams. I never understood why you sit players like that, especially if they're fit and they're ready to go. Trust me, I understand that a player here and there needs a day of rest or isn't feeling well for the game, and that's cool. I totally understand that. But the thing with Tab, I think, has a huge advantage over Wilmer is that he isn't scared to change up the formation the last third of the game, if he really needs to, if he needs to get more defensive or if he needs to be more attack minded and, press and apply pressure to get that second goal or that winning goal or that goal to tie the game or whatever, So it's one of those things where with Wilmer, we go up 1-0 early and then we park the bus, for lack of a better term, and then just sit back and then once the opposing team scored on us, we looked all like, what? Like, why did they score on us? Because you stopped playing your game. You scored a goal early, or you scored a goal, or you went up a couple of goals, and then you stopped playing your game that got you there, and they counted on you, and they came back and they won. How many games finished where we were winning and then we ended up losing after the final whistle was blown?
I think Carlos says it best. He says we didn't have a team that could play 90 minutes. I mean, that's really the long and short of it, right? I don't think I saw a complete 90-minute performance except maybe 2-3 matches in the entire season. And that's unacceptable for a team. That falls squarely on coach, and they dealt with it by getting rid of Wilmer and bringing Tab in. Let's talk about the difference of bringing Tab in and what other people are seeing so far already with Tab in charge. Look, I saw comments from Glenn Davis and other entities out there saying that they're seeing a difference in training with Tab Ramos running the show. He's letting his academy and assistant coaches run training with all players, including academy, RGV, and Dynamo players, all training together on the same pitches at HSP all together. And Tab is basically just overseeing all of it. So it's a system, right? We talk about this idea of system and this idea that everybody's on a level playing field, no matter where you are in your development or where you are in that kind of process of moving on up through the ranks. You're doing the same things no matter where you are in that process. The other thing that they had to say is that that the way Tab Ramos runs his trainings, it's very regimented, it's very organized, whereas under like Wilmer or even Davey, things were much more loose and chaotic, and there wasn't kind of this organization to everything. And they noted that even under the assistant coaches, that there's this kind of very specific way of training that's very regimented, very organized. Everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing. And I have heard from various sources that it seems like the team has more energy this year in preseason than they even had last year. And that, to me, is a good sign that Tab Ramos understands what this team needs, and we're just in preseason right now. He understands that what this team needs to do, first and foremost, is they need to get that fitness back. They need to be players in a team that can go a full 90 minutes. So he has an approach to that. He's working them to get to that point, and I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be able to do that. So that's just step one in the process. Look, it's going to take a bit for that to show, to bear fruit, if you will, but it's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, this team is poised this season to absolutely dominate some teams. I'm not saying they're going to dominate everybody. I'm not saying they're going to be first in the West or first overall in the league, but they're going to cause a bunch of teams problems. There are going to be teams out there that still cause them problems, and that's going to happen. Every team has that one or two teams out there that they just can't figure out because of the way that they're playing or the style they play or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, this team is going to be very reminiscent of LAFC last year, where they're dominating specific teams repeatedly throughout the season. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of matches, obviously, in the season, and we have Miami coming in this year, which could throw things kind of out of whack a little bit, and Nashville as well. So we'll see. But I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see all of this kind of come to fruition. I'm excited to see what Tab actually has done with this team. I'm excited to see the improvement in this team and in the players. And I'm just excited. This is the time to be excited because it's new, it's fresh, it feels different. Kind of like the supporters group stuff that's going on right now with Hustletown. It feels new, it feels fresh, it feels different. I can tell you, I know for a fact that there are people busting their asses out there right now to improve the supporters overall kind of culture, to improve the supporters, what's been going on there, and make things better. And trust me, it's bearing fruit. It's showing that it's working. And we're going to see it this year. And I'm excited about that as well. So there's a lot to be excited about. There's those that like to say that there's nothing to be excited about because we didn't sign a big name player, but I argue there's more than enough to be excited about. You just got to stop looking at that damn Zlatan poster and realize we're not going to get a Zlatan and be okay with it.
That's tunnel vision, to some fans. Unfortunately, some fans have tunnel vision, and that's okay. I understand, but we also got to keep in mind it's a new coach, new formation, new style. So even if we don't get off to the quickest of starts and off to the greatest of starts, it's a process. I think that's what other people got to keep in mind as well. Like I said, I'm hoping for the fast start. I'm hoping for everything's clicking and the team is enjoying the football that Tab Ramos is putting into work in their formation. And I hope that everything goes well. I hope we thrash LA Galaxy 5-0 opening day. I hope all that happens. But at the same time, if it doesn't go that way and, let's say we struggle the first month coming in, I mean, it's okay. It's a new head coach. We got to give him time to get acquainted with everybody and get used to playing with each other. We do have new players in. It might not be the players that you wanted to bring in. It might not have been those big names, but we have new players coming in. They got to fit the system, and they got to get adjusted with the players that we have from last season. So, forever optimistic, obviously. I'm hoping for the best of the best results. But at the same time, I'm not afraid to sit back and say, hey, I might have to give them a month or two for them to get their stuff together. And I'm not afraid of that. That's okay.
I like
what happens when you get new beginnings.
I like what Cisco said there. He said, fans ask why we can't have a Zlatan type player, but the truth is 24 other teams didn't get a Zlatan type either. I mean, it's important to remember there's only one Zlatan. There's only one Carlos Vela. There's only one, Joseph Martinez or Miguel Almiron. Now, look, Atlanta United struck gold when they got Joseph Martinez and Miguel Almiron. But trust me, that wasn't a guarantee. A lot of that stemmed from the fact they had Tata Martino in charge. A lot of LAFC success with Vela and Rossi comes from the fact that they've had Bob Bradley in charge. The reality is that some of the big names that have come into the league have been successful because of the coaches they've played for and have played with. Look, if you have a big name player that comes into the league and they play for a coach that's not very good, guess what? They're not going to be a great player in the league, no matter how good they are. Perfect example of that is Darwin Quintero with Minnesota United. Darwin Quintero struggled with Minnesota United. Sure, he had his moments, but it was a struggle for him to be a consistently quality player for an entire season because he didn't have the right coach in charge. If Tab Ramos is as good as we all believe and hope he can be, then let's face it, at the end of the day, Darwin Quintero is going to be an absolute beast this season. And that's a guy that we got for dirt cheap, that is a quality DP level player. Look, you can argue all you want that they didn't spend a lot of money on him, but if you don't have to spend the money and you can still bring a player like that in that fits the system and fits what your coach wants to do, then by God, you got to do it. You can't care what the price tag is on the player. You do it because it makes sense, not because they're not worth a $500 million transfer fee.
Like I said, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said, when they see a price tag, it's like a car, basically. You put a $1 million price tag on a car, everybody's gonna think, oh my God, that car is the best car in the world. When realistically, it's a car. It's just it might have better features and it might have a better motor than that, but it's a car. That car gets you to point A to point B and point C, whereas maybe a $50,000 car gets you to point A, point B, point C, but you can use that car for way more things. You're not afraid to use that car in different avenues. You're not afraid to use it in paved roads or rocky roads or whatever. Whereas a $1 million car, you can only use it certain places and you can't really maneuver it. So
let me point this out too. Micho Rizzo said something I really like too. He said, some of us, parentheses me, get cloudy and greed, then we check out other rosters and we're like, oh right, they all suck. That's the reality. We got to remember, we're not the Premier League. We're not La Liga. We're not Liga MX. We're not Bundesliga. We're not League One in France. We're just not. We're not those leagues. But we are good enough to compete in MLS. The roster is good enough to compete in MLS. The reason we brought in Darwin Quintero is because it's a player that fits the system. It fits what this team wants to do. It fits what Tab Ramos wants to do. And if he's a player that can fit that, maybe he struggled in Minnesota a little bit because he wasn't playing in the right spot, the right position, the right style, the right formation, right tactic, whatever you want to call it. If he wasn't being played the right way, if Tomas is one of those players that he has struggled because he's not been deployed in the right way, under the right coach and hasn't been coached up, if Memo actually has a much higher ceiling and we just haven't seen it because he hasn't been coached up to that level, and what we've seen so far is just his pure talent coming through, just think if Mauro can be an even better player than he's been, if Elise can be an even better player than he's been, this team is astronomically capable of doing amazing things this season. And yes, MLS pundits and ESPN FC and The Athletic and everybody else, they're gonna sit here and they're gonna rule the Dynamo out as being good enough to compete in MLS. But at the end of the year, this Dynamo team under Tab Ramos, this Dynamo team that's been built under Matt Jordan, this Dynamo team that we love and support, we're going to be the ones pointing at the scoreboard at the end of the season going, we're the ones sitting near the top of the table, and you had absolutely no inclination we could be this good. We all knew we could be this good because we understood the talent of the players that we had.
You can also see, from what Sean was speaking about, at least he's going to be motivated. Regardless if we sell him or we don't, at least he's going to be motivated for the fact that when he gets to the summer transfer window, he can sign a pre-contract with an European team that comes looking for him. So obviously he wants the best case scenario. He wants the best team possible to come after him. The reason he had such high hopes to go with Fenerbahce when they came looking around is because they're one of the top clubs in Turkey. And when you're one of the top clubs in Turkey or any other small European country, more than likely you're gonna hit one of those Champion League spots. That's why he was so upset about that. But regardless if that team comes back for him or another team, he wants the best case scenario and the best possible scenario for him as far as going to Europe and to play top level European competition over there. So at least he's gonna be motivated. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he's gonna do because that player, he's our game changer more so than Mauro Manotas is. Even though Mauro scores the goals and all this stuff, obviously he's a center forward. He's gonna have more opportunity. But no kidding ourselves. Albert Elise is our top dog in this team. Albert Elise, talent wise, is our A player, is our DP player, quote unquote. Even though he might not be making the millions of dollars like the other top level DP players are. But he has that potential to be that level of quality here in MLS. And like I said, going back to where I was saying about Mauro Manotas, the same goes for Albert Elise. That's why he has all these European clubs hovering over him.
Let me make a point on top of that. If Tab Ramos unlocks Elise to be an absolute beast in this first half of the season, and Elise looks at what we have, and he looks at Tab Ramos, and Tab Ramos says, hey, man, we want to keep you around. Look, we've shown that we can help you unlock to that next level. We think that, yeah, you could go over to Europe and you could be a good player. We want you to go over to Europe and be a great player. Spend another 2 to 3 seasons with us and let us finish unlocking your talent. I guarantee you, if he's at that point where he's a double-digit goal scorer at that point, if he has 10 assists at that point, if he's sitting top of the heap and the Dynamo are sitting at the top of the heap, and he knows he has the possibility for CONCACAF Champions League again for a chance to redeem himself under Tab Ramos. Look, it's easy for us to sit back and say, no, man, there's no way Elise is going to do that. There's no way that Elise is going to stick around. But I think we underestimate the impact that a single coach can have on that type of decision that's made. Look, we want to say all those things. We want to say that, Elise definitely is going to Europe. I don't know if that's definitely 100% happening because things change, opinions change. If Elise starts having fun again, if he becomes that Elise that starts pulling out those Black Panther masks and he starts doing the Panther crawl this season and he's having a damn good time with all the players around him and Quintero's telling him, look, man, stick around. We got a champion opportunity this season and we're running CCL next season. It's hard for a player to pass that up, no matter how intriguing Europe may be. Because guess what? He still has time to get that Europe money, especially if he knows that he finally has a coach that can unlock that talent and give him that opportunity. And if he knows that he can make a bigger payday by sticking around another 1 or 2 seasons, why wouldn't he consider it at the very least?
Look, I mean, and just to go on top of that, if I'm his agent, my player to be secured financially, right? And anything can happen. And any sport, soccer, football, basketball, anything can happen. One bad play, and guess what? Your career is over, right? And as his agent, if I was his agent, I would be looking to sign an extension just to have that in my back pocket for in case anything bad happens, obviously, you know? And if he has an amazing first half of the season, and let's say the clubs that come looking for him aren't really the clubs that he's looking to go to, because I mean, look, it's one thing to just go to Europe just to go to Europe because you want to go to Europe, but it's another thing to go to Europe and play European football to a high level, you know? Because I doubt that he wants to go play European football in Belgium,
Or Turkey for Fenerbahce.
Yeah, Turkey. You know, I mean, if you're looking to go to Europe, you want to go to Spain. You want to go championship. I mean, come on. That really going to Europe? I mean, obviously I don't know what Stoke City has in plan or if they're anywhere close to promotion, but if they're not, and next season they're playing championship football instead of Premier League football, is that really the move you want to go? Is that really the move you think that's gonna elevate you to the next level? And like I said, as his agent, if he has a great first half of the season, I'm getting on the phone with Mac Jordan. I'm saying, like, you know what? We might stay with you, but we need more money. And that's okay. At least it's worth that money. If at least becomes our DP player, if at least signs a contract extension with us and he's making that $2 million annual salary, I'm not gonna hate him for it. He deserves it. He's that quality player. He's that type of quality player. Obviously, we've seen where in the second half he's fallen off because he has a lot of stuff going on, playing international football. And I'm not making excuses for him either. He needs to find a way to, keep his fitness and strength up. And hopefully with these new coaches that they brought in, that's going to help.
And stay on the pitch. And stay on the pitch.
And stay on the pitch. You stop being so childish and stop letting your emotions get the best of you. But if he gets all that down to a certain level, and his agent gets a contract extension with a release clause, because we want to do good by the player as well. Obviously, we brought in Albert Elise because he wasn't playing for Rayados. He was on the Rayados team, but he wasn't playing. He wasn't getting any minutes. He came into the Dynamo. We upped his level to the point where European clubs are now hovering over him. Why can't we get you up to another level now that we have a coach who can actually coach, who can actually put you in a position to be better than what you have been? And what Elise has been so far has been a 10-goal, 10-assist player, which is not bad at all. But if we can get those numbers up to 15 goals and 15 assists, I mean, that's phenomenal numbers. Those are DP type numbers. Have our DP on our team, because I believe Elise could be that type of player given the right situation and the right attitude and the right mindset. Obviously there's got to be a lot of things that go our way with Elise, but who says it can't? That it wasn't about soccer anymore. It was about who can do other things, social media, all this other stuff. But now that he's kind of gone and that's kind of out of his way, I think he has the mindset of being, what? It's my team now. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to ball out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's not all sunshine and roses just because you go to Europe. There's a lot to Europe that isn't to like, and you see it. There are plenty of players that have gone from the U.S. overseas and realize that it's not their cup of tea because they couldn't make it onto a Premier League team or a top flight team in a league somewhere, and they end up playing in Sweden or any number of other countries that in lower leagues that aren't top tier leagues. But I don't.
Example,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Prime example is, I know a couple of y'all follow U.S. soccer. So some of y'all know Lyndon Gooch. he was one of those players that during the time Pulisic was coming up, he was like right there with him. You know, they were talking about him and Pulisic and Adams and obviously McKinney as the future. You know, because he was in Sunderland when Sunderland was in the Premier League. Then they fell off the Championship League, and now they're I think they're third division.
Yeah,
English. You know, something like it's stuff can go quickly, man, and it's one of those things where if Gooch wants to come over here to MLS, any MLS would welcome him. But obviously, some people, some players, and I'm not, and obviously, I don't know his situation. I don't know the whole deal. I'm just using him as an example because he's playing lower division European soccer, which I don't think is something that he has envisioned. Because obviously, since that's happened, he hasn't been called up for the United States men's national team. So it's one of those things that you can go over to Europe and sign with a club, but if they get relegated or fall out, a lot of these European clubs are bankrupting and closing down. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's a lot of stuff can happen. And sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side or across the pond in this scenario. So Julian Green is another example. Thank you, Cisco. I mean, what happened to that kid?
No, I like I said, I mean, I certainly agree with you, and I think a lot of fans would be, would do well to remember that. I think at times it's hard to remember that, but look, man, we've dwelled on the Dynamo for for basically 2 hours, an hour and a half ish, hour 45. I made a promise to our Dash listeners, followers, and we're definitely going to have to talk about the Dash. There's still one other topic to get to, but maybe we'll hold that for next week. So JJ Watt's fiance, Kalia Ohai, has been removed as Grand Marshal of the Rodeo Parade following her trade to the Chicago Red Stars. I want your opinion on this, Mark. Should the rodeo have removed her as Grand Marshal, or should they have just kept her as Grand Marshal and just let it be, let it be what it was? Do you think removing her was the right move there?
For those who don't know, like all these groups, or like say for example, like the Rodeo Committee, Texans, the Rockets, all that stuff. All these groups, they have an inner circle. These people talk amongst each other, right? So and
good old boys network.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't personally know the situation. I think it was a surprise to a lot of people when it came out that she asked for the trade. And I understand from a player standpoint. Like, look, she's kind of hit a wall here in Houston, so she needs to go find something else to hopefully get back the dream of hopefully. I'm guessing the goal is to get back with the national team, with the women's national team. But aside from that, I think it's one of those things that had to be done. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a Houston player. So I see why they did it. Should they have done it? I mean, I wouldn't have really cared if they kept her or if they didn't. It doesn't really bother me any. But I mean, I obviously see the reason for it. You want a Houston representative to ring in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and if you don't have a Houston representative, which she is no longer, then
no, I get it. I mean, I get why they made the move. I think if it's me, I mean, she's still a Houstonian. It doesn't matter the fact that she's going to another team. I mean, that it's the equivalent of not letting Hakeem be the rodeo, the rodeo guy because he was traded way back when to Toronto. Well, hold up. The only reason I say that is because there was some turmoil over the fact that he was traded to Toronto. In my opinion, in that regards, it's the same kind of thing. Now, granted, Kalia Ohai does not have the same clout that Hakeem Olajuwon does. She doesn't have the back-to-back championships to put to the name, but she does have. She is a name regardless of the fact. She's still a name, in the sport, in this city, and was a name on the team. Now, from everything that I've heard, it's not like players are crying over the fact that she's gone. There were some that, were less than surprised that she made her desire to leave known. But at the same time, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if I can fault the rodeo for making that move. I'll ask you this, and this is important, and we're gonna switch tacks real quick. I want to ask this because I think it's important. With the draft picks specifically that the Dash picked up, Bridget Andrzejewski, can you pronounce it, and Chloe Castaneda, both forwards. If the Dynamo had picked up nothing but forwards in the draft, how would you feel about that? Would you be okay with that?
Oh, see, the thing is, okay, this is where you got to take the player and the team situation apart, because this is one of the things that the Dynamo had a problem with. That's why they can't sell these top players that they have, because they don't have anybody to replace them. So on the Dash standpoint, if the Dash are going to look, we know we have talent up top, right? With Daly and Kelia at the time, whatever, and I forget the other girl's name. Yeah, how are you gonna draft more forwards and more attacking players when you already have these other attacking players, right? But a lot of things happen. You can't be worrying about who comes in. If you're worrying about the next person's already passed you up. That's always been my thought process and work or whatever. If you're thinking about the person behind you, then that person's already passed you up. So I don't know if that led to her decision of hey, asking for the trade, because hey, we need help in the Dash need help in other areas, and we're pretty set up top. So why are you drafting attacking players? I don't know if she really thought about it that much, or she thought about it as you know what? I haven't made the playoffs since I've been here. There's been so much change and turnover with the Dash as far as coaches and players and strategies and all and whatnot. And she's been injured, she's been hurt, and she was on the United States women's national team, and she hasn't been called up for a long while now. So maybe as a player, she took a little bit moment of selfishness and said, you know what, I got to be a little selfish. And yeah, I love Houston, but I got to go somewhere else to hopefully resurrect my career, because maybe like I said, I don't follow Dash enough to know, what their deal is, but it's not the stablest of clubs from what I've seen the last couple of years. I mean, if I'm wrong, let me know, Sean. I mean, I'm like I said, I don't follow the Dash like that to really understand, their level of commitment to winning, because obviously since their existence, I don't think they've made the playoffs, right? Did I lose you? I guess I lost Sean for a little bit, but yeah, but like I said, it's just one of those things where I think it was more of her personal decision that she just needed a change of scenery to help, to help her progression, because she's been stagnant for the last couple of years. And I wouldn't be surprised if she got out to be out of the shadows of her fiance. I mean, because JJ Watt is basically the mayor of Houston, and maybe she wanted to be out of those shadows for a little bit, and who can blame her too? Because it's one of those things when you're quote unquote the lesser half of a star of a celebrity couple, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I don't blame her for asking for the trade if she asked for it, and it's one of those things that I think it's going to be good for both sides, and I think this is one of those situations going to be good for both sides, because from what I've heard and what I've seen on social media or just the blogs or whatever, she wasn't the easiest player to get along with, and she wasn't really, one of the best teammates to have. So I think it's a win-win situation, and I think the player that they got back from Chicago for her is a defensive player that's going to really solidify the defense for the Dash. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, let me know on the chat if I'm wrong. Like I said, I wish I need to get better on following the Dash, but yeah, right now I'm not the biggest Dash informant out there. So guys, help me out if I'm missing out on something or if I'm misinformed somewhere. But yeah, Cisco, no playoffs in Dash existence 6 years. Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's some instability there, and she can't, and she's in the time of her career where she needs some stability and she needs to grow. So yeah, I don't blame her for asking to be out of the Dash. So what do you guys think? Callow. Yeah, dude, that would be amazing. They never made the playoffs, and then next season they win the whole thing, right? That would be super dope. That would be the icing on the cake. Well, the cherry on top and icing on the cake, I guess. But like I said, I hold nothing against her. I mean, she's doing whatever's best for her, and from everything I've seen, the club got back something that they desperately needed. So she developed an ego and felt entitled. I mean, she is JJ Watt's fiance, Cisco. If you didn't know that, if you didn't hear, it's everybody's pulling for that Dash championship for this year coming up, huh? Guys, but look, I'm gonna move on from this Dash thing for a little bit. Hopefully, when Sean gets off his call, we'll get back on it. But as far as anything else about the Dynamo, actually, let's talk about the Fan Fest this Saturday. Who's gonna be out there? I know Cisco's gonna be out there. He says he's gonna be the guy with the trombone. Actually, I'm gonna look out for him. I'm gonna go out there and look for you, Cisco. That way we can take a picture together. That way I know I can say that I met you. Oh yeah, for sure. I gotta go see Callo. I gotta see Callo out there. Make sure I meet the mastermind and the biggest supporter of Aston Villa ever. Are you gonna bring the dog with you? Guys, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this fan fest. I mean, I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be nice to see old Dynamo faithful and new ones, obviously, as well. And obviously the supporter groups, with it about the On and Texanian Army, and obviously the newer supporter groups with like the Surge and Magna Naranja and all the independent supporters as well. It's gonna be great to see out there. A lot of great things. I know a lot of people are happy about the free popcorn and all that stuff. And obviously you get to see the new upgrades to the stadium, the pitch. Obviously get to see Tab and then some of the new players and maybe a little scrimmage here and there. But honestly, I'm excited about getting to interact with a couple of y'all. Getting to meet y'all. I only know some of y'all from Twitter or from here on Discord. So to finally get to see a face, put a face to the name or to the Twitter handle would be nice. And I know for the same for y'all, because I know y'all haven't seen me obviously since my start with Generation Orange. And like we said in the beginning of the show, we're working hard to get that, situated. So that way y'all can put a face to the voice. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a good look. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of y'all out there. Yeah, for sure, Micho. I gotta meet you, man. You just came out of nowhere, but I'm glad that you're here. So, oh yeah, for sure. For those who don't know, the Dynamo charities are gonna have fire sale on jerseys, merchandise, t-shirts, all that great stuff. So I mean, from what I heard in the past, they're great deals, like 50% off, great merchandise. So I mean, this can be one of those days where you load up on Dynamo gear to be ready for the upcoming season. Yeah, for sure, Darby. I mean, not just for Cisco, hold some stuff for me too. There you go. Cisco wants band members first dibs. Oh, no, guys, but aside from the fan fest, I mean, anything else y'all want to talk about? Anything about the Dynamo that y'all want to talk about that we haven't talked about or touched bases on? Any questions about any of the players? Maybe strategically or tactically, or Any concerns? I get one of those Dynamo jerseys that I accidentally say Dash on them. But going back to the Dynamo, hopefully I'm excited to see the first game of the season. Obviously, with the extra hype of Chicharito coming into to Houston, that being his first game, which I'm sure it's going to be one of those nationally televised games on Univision and probably even ESPN. They're probably going to flex it somehow to make sure that they get that game. I'm excited to see BBVA full. I expect it to be a packed house, and not just because a lot of Mexican national team fans are going to come out there, or a lot of Chicharito supporters, but because I think there's a new light and new hope for the Dynamo, and I think a lot of Dynamo fans will be out there. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see a lot of orange out there, along with the shades of green and all that great stuff. But I'm excited. I'm hoping to see something really, really dope out there. Like I was talking to one of my friends that I'm hoping to see the Dynamo Stadium packed, because the last time I think I seen it packed was for the 2017 playoff game against Seattle, and I'm hoping it's the first of many packed games that we get this season. You should have got that number 9 Manas kit, Carlo. That's a collector's item. Those are like those the coins with the two-headed heads on it.
Darby, why did you spell Chicharito with a double R? What is he, a burrito now?
Roll her R's, man. Let her roll her R's.
Chicharito.
So, Sean, I mean, I was talking a little bit. I got off a little bit off on Dash because, like I said, I'm not too much informed on the Dash, as you are. So, I mean, if you want to get back on that topic, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I do, because I promised that we would talk Dash, and damn it, by God, I'm gonna make it happen.
Look, I extended myself with my Dash.
What? You talked for a minute, and that was it.
Hey, and a minute and a half. Come on, give me some props.
No, you're good. No, I wanted to talk about specifically, and I know this is not your forte, so I understand, Mark, but specifically the Dash have brought in a couple of defensive players this offseason to help shore up the back line, and we know that Amber Brooks has paired with a number of different center backs, and it's been a struggle. We know that Alyssa Chapman has been out wide on the left, and right back has kind of been up in the air really ever since they started. And so it'll be interesting. I think that, truth be told, with the improvements that they've made at center back and outside, that the team should be better this year with that alone. Look, the attack is still good enough. Ohio was not a phenomenal striker in NWSL. She was not a top elite talent in NWSL when it comes to strikers. But losing her means that other players have the opportunity to step up and show that they're good enough to compete. And so, I want to see, Nichelle Prince. I want to see Alyssa Chapman. I want to see Sophie Schmidt. I want to see these players, step up, come in and step up. I want to see Veronica Latsko step up. And look, Latsko showed last year that she has the talent. We're not going to talk about Sofia Huerta. These ladies have shown that they have the talent. Some of them came up a little short last year, and that happens. It's okay. But the Dash this year. Let me ask this to Cisco and those who follow the Dash: is this really and truly the make or break year for the Dash? If they don't make the playoffs, is that it? Like, are there any fans that are going to stick around after this year? Even the hardcore, diehard fans after this year, if they don't make the playoffs? I mean, that's 7 years of playoffs, of no playoffs, and they'll still have not figured out how to make it happen.
Sean, by the way, I actually got that right. That part of the Dash history, the little history that I know.
I wish I had a pre-applause scene that I could roll for you right now, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Good job. Good job.
I knew that they've never made the playoffs in their history. That I did know. So, and I know for the trade of JJ's fiance that they got back a defender that's supposed to solidify their defense, right? So it's a win-win situation for the Chicago team and for the Dash, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's.
I know a little something.
With the trade, what we got out of the trade, getting a stronger defensive piece out of the trade, and in a position where we already had a absolute just wealth of depth. It's not a bad move by any stretch of the imagination. We're still thin at outside back. That still is a concern. And drafting 2 forwards in the draft, that leaves me asking a few questions. But I think at the same time, there are players on this team that can show that they can be good enough. And I think Cisco makes a good point. Why did the Dash get so much leeway? As he says, year 7 with no playoffs. Dynamo have never gone more than 3 years without playoffs, and folks want everyone fired. I mean, I agree. That's a really good point.
Let me ask you, just because, like, from what I see from afar, so, like, I see the women's league in other countries, like in Spain and obviously in Mexico, like they're growing. They're growing rapidly. And you're seeing like these women's soccer teams filling up stadiums, 30,000, 40,000. And I think even whose team is it? Portland Thorns? That's the name of the team for Portland, right? They're filling up the Timber Stadium, right? Full
Portland capacity. Thorns, yeah.
Is it one of those things where the Dash are not out there enough, or is it that? Because I knew when they had Carly Lloyd. I hate to sound like one of those. Oh, I only know them because they have a certain big name player. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't follow Dash that much. But when they had Carly Lloyd, I knew about that. But even then, and this is like right after her amazing World Cup in 2015. But even then, the Dash weren't selling out or weren't filling up the Dynamo Stadium. I don't think they even had like 10,000 fans there, right?
No, they've never sold out the stadium.
So what else do they need? Because we there's a lot of people bashing the Dynamo for not signing a big player, but the Dash signed arguably the biggest player in the women's league and the women's game a couple of years back, and yet there was no following. So what's up?
I think there's there's a difference there, right? It's the Dynamo had the fortune of coming into this city and being a championship right out of the gate. The Dash came in, they had a bunch of buzz. They actually were selling pretty decent right out of the gate, and then they struggled their first season, and that was kind of that. They've never had momentum. They've never had steam for fans to get behind. Look, there's enough women's soccer fans in this city that if the Dash are good enough and they're pushing, if they're good enough to be in the top two in the league or top 3 in the league, I promise you they're going to get fans to show up. The problem right now is there's no belief from anyone, excluding the diehard fans in Bayou City Republic, that this team is going to, or is it Bayou City Brigade? Bayou City Republic.
So I'm asking this question as somebody that wants to learn, right? So obviously for me, the Dash signing Carly Lloyd, especially at the time that they signed her, was like right after the World Cup, where she won basically every award, right? The same thing like what Megan Rapinoe is doing right now. The last World Cup prior to this one, that was Carly Lloyd's World Cup, right? Am I wrong? So the complete exact same as if the Dynamo had signed, I don't know who won. I guess Messi, 2014 World Cup. He was the Golden Ball winner. That would be the same thing, right? Obviously, I'm not trying to compare Carly Lloyd to Messi, and obviously Messi has a higher reach than Carly Lloyd did, but as far as player the top players in their respective profession. Carly Lloyd was that, right? So is it something with the management and the people running the team that this playoff drought has been like this? Because I know they have the the young lady from England who made the quarterfinals in
Rachel
the
Daly.
World, right?
Rachel Daly.
Yeah, and I heard she's a pretty big deal because I mean she's playing for England. I mean she's I think she was starting a couple of games in the World Cup for them, right? And that's a big deal. And then obviously they had JJ's girl and O'Hara. I'm gonna stop saying JJ's girl. O'Hara.
Oh hi. Oh hi. Don't call her O'Hara. That's a different player entirely.
Okay. Oh hi. And then and I'm gonna sound like such a dork or a dickweed or whatever. And then the girl Sofia Huerta, that's the girl who had the little incident in Mexico, right?
I'm sorry, who? What?
Sophia?
No, she didn't have an incident in Mexico. No, you're thinking of somebody else.
Was the girl that went to the Dash play that went and she got groped by somebody?
Oh, that might have been Sofia Huerta. That might have been Huerta. I don't know. I've just I don't know. I don't keep up with the off-season stuff, man.
No, off-season they were playing a game. They were playing the game.
But then it had to be Sofia. Oh yeah, that was Sofia Huerta.
Thank you, Cisco. Thank you. You see,
you keep up with it more than I do. All right, cool. You can run with it, Mark. This is your segment now. You dash. Go for it.
I'm just saying because like okay, so like because obviously I want to get behind the Dash, and I'm gonna make it a emphasis on my end to start following the Dash more in that stuff as well. But obviously, if I'm going to put the effort to do it too, I want to see the effort from them to finally make the playoffs and do something exciting. But from what I've seen, they've already done exciting things. And so is it the management team group that's failing them? Are they just not stable? I'm not understanding why they're not achieving any type of level of success in this 6-year run that they've been on.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty simple equation, right? It's been the coaching that they've pulled in. They started with Randy Waldrum, who was a college coach with no professional experience coaching professional players, and he was not given a ton of support. They had a plan in how they went about the first season in terms of the expansion draft, and it was just honestly was not a very good approach. It just didn't work flat out, and they gave him basically 3 years at the helm. And then when they finally got rid of him, they gave the reins over to Vera Poe, who was an international coach and had some very limited success internationally, but had a running had players that had played for her that had said, publicly, repeatedly, that they were not fans of her as a coach, that she was not a player's coach. So you're going, your first two coaches of your club are coaches that have never coached, not only in NWSL, but not even coached professionally in women's soccer. Then we expand past that, and your coach now is James Clarkson, who was your boys academy coach, your Dynamo Academy. I guess at the time he would have been essentially the director, but he was the coach. He was the general manager of the academy, the technical director of the academy, and you put him in as your professional women's coach. Now, don't get me wrong, James Clarkson did a pretty decent job, but if you're not going to support the club and you're not going to support the players by bringing in a coach that is a professional women's coach, why are you expecting anything other than subpar results? It doesn't matter how good of players you bring in. I just said this when it came to MLS and men's players. Coach makes a huge difference. If you're not going to support the players by bringing in a coach that's worthy of their play style and their play talent and skills, why are you expecting anything different than mediocre success? I mean, and that's what it comes down to. It's as simple as that.
Who do we place the blame on then? I mean, because
it's easy for me. It falls flat at the feet of Chris Canetti. His approach, and I've heard this echoed, and I'm sure it's going to piss off some people that I say this. What?
Is he still involved with it? I mean, he didn't.
No. He was out last season, so he's only been gone for a year basically. But but it was he was the one that started the Dash, and he won't say this, but it was basically started as a pet project of his. It was his pet project, and essentially he viewed it as an opportunity to give his daughters something to look forward to when it came to soccer. So he didn't even. So, but the thing was, he didn't even take it all that seriously, and and it was treated that way from the very beginning, and it wasn't conducted in a very professional way. I mean, they used they had all the Dynamo front office were also the Dash front office, and I'm talking about sales reps as well. Everything was spread across the same people, and they were handed a whole nother slew of responsibilities to have to do. And if you're
for the stepbrother of this situation,
stepsister, definitely the stepsister. And to make matters worse, though, if I'm a front office personnel and I have to choose between pouring my effort into the Dynamo, where I know that there's a future in MLS for me if I can have some success with the Dynamo, versus the other way around, if I'm looking at the Dash and I don't know if there's anything more that I can do in terms of opportunities to promote myself outside of that club, around the world, why would I pour my time and effort into the Dash when I can pour my time and effort into the Dynamo, and I, as a person, can see personal success long term if the team is successful? I can't see that with the Dash because it's the NWSL and it's women's soccer, and it's not a knock on women's soccer. It's just at the time that the Dash first started, it was not considered this big thing. It's gotten a lot bigger just in general. More people are taking notice, and the league is starting to grow more and more. But at the same time, the flip side of that is even NWSL doesn't take themselves all that seriously. They run themselves as a stepsister league, to be very, very frank and very, very honest. You look at the fact that they still don't have an NWSL commissioner replaced. They haven't had an NWSL commissioner technically in 3 seasons. And yet there's...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how can you expect a league that doesn't have a commissioner named for basically 3 seasons to be a successful league?
The reason I ask these questions is because, so obviously after the Women's World Cup, the NWSL got a huge boost, and obviously having a main sponsor in Budweiser, obviously they took the reins of that. And the reason I know that is because I work with a distributor, and I'm a little affiliated with them or whatever. But and then obviously going back to what I was saying before, the Dash signing players like Carly Lloyd and obviously Rachel Daly from the England team, and all these other players that are supposedly, I guess, in their profession, named players. If the Dynamo were doing that, then people would be applauding them, and I think they would be getting a lot of fandom if the Dynamo were doing something similar to that. And just because of my novice to this subject, how long do you think the Dash survive if they keep going in this trend? Do you think they make it to year 10?
I think they do, because look, the team is not counting, the team being the club, the organization, the club, they're not counting on the Dash being successful from a monetary standpoint, from a financial standpoint. They've already chalked the club up, or the Dash up, as a loss financially. So for them, it's not a big deal to not have the team be successful, because they're not planning on them being successful. If they are, hey, that's a bunch more money in their pocket from an ownership perspective. But it's not okay, we need to throw a bunch of money to make them successful. It's just if they happen to be successful, so be it. The problem for the Dash is with the struggles the league is having right now, and some teams doing very well, but some teams also struggling because, again, the league structure is such that there's kind of this stepsister kind of mentality of how they handle front office stuff. Until they get that stuff figured out from a league perspective, I'm not sure the league itself survives. They've got the opportunity to be successful. They have plenty of open doors in front of them, but it requires a league focus to get all that stuff done right, to get all that stuff, make that stuff successful. It doesn't just happen just because you're a women's league. You have to put in the time and the effort. And I guarantee you, if you talk to somebody like a Deanna Witter, or you talk to somebody like a John Walker, who's been through a women's sport, essentially, and has worked in those organizations, they're going to tell you the same thing. You have to put in the time and the effort to see the success bear fruit. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's going to require a focus specifically in that direction. And I think overall, that from a business standpoint, I do feel like they're doing better with it. They have specific individuals that are focusing on the dash in specific ways, and I think that's great. But I still think they're struggling because from a soccer perspective, they're not putting enough emphasis on being successful. They're putting the emphasis on being proper role models and being something that young girls can look up to.
See, I'm comparing this to when it was the Rockets and the Comets. Leslie Alexander owned both teams, right? So obviously the Comets came in, they won 4 titles in a row. They were the best team in the league, WNBA. They were selling out Compact Center, all that stuff, right? And then after the title runs, and maybe after a couple of years after that, the team got sold separately to another owner, and then obviously they flopped and they're no longer in existence, right? And you just said yourself that they're basically looking at the dash as a loss. But when you tell me that as a person who doesn't know or isn't strive for that would be great, super dope, whatever. But from a business standpoint, if Gabriel Brenner, who's one of the obviously, lack of better terms, most frugal owners in MLS, is throwing away money to a team in NWSL that isn't doing anything, how long would he keep that up? Why would he keep it up? This is my question.
I'll say this from a general perspective: he's losing, from what I understand, less than about $500,000 per year. That for Gabriel Brenner, that's considering this is going to make people struggle to understand where I'm coming from, but the Dynamo are financially a successful organization. Year over year, they continue to increase revenue, whether people realize that or not, they do. And so for him to lose a little bit in reality for the dash, yes, it hurts his pocket and his bottom line, but they can still afford to lose that money. It's not a big deal. The benefit for the Dynamo in terms of organizationally, the benefit for for Brenner, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, because the Dash are not a successful organization financially, it is essentially like he's donating the money. It is a loss that he can write off on his taxes in the U.S. for the Dynamo as an investor, because he's not making money on the Dash. That is considered a loss that he can apply to the Dynamo from a financial perspective. You want to know why the Dynamo consistently continue to be a financial success year over year? It's not because of the sponsors. It's not because of the front office. It's because they have the Dash now that they can write off any losses that they have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously from that business standpoint, I understand that if those I'm sorry, brain fart. If he's getting those benefits financially, as writing them off for whatever for financial purposes, then I guess it's understandable from a business standpoint. But I don't know. I mean, it's because like I said, it's just one of those things where it's, let's say it's $500,000 loss per year, but it's been 6 years, so he's lost $3 million. Which I mean, $3 million, $3 million. $500,000 a year. That's the transfer fee for Brian Ocampo.
Well, okay, so there was one more thing I wanted to talk about related to the Dash, and I think this is important too. Well, actually, there's two things, but this in particular I really want to bring up. If you're Matt Jordan, if you're put in that position as manager of soccer operations for both the Dynamo and the Dash, and your responsibility or your what has been directed to you is that the Dynamo need to be successful, and that is your first priority by the owner, that's what you've been told, where are you going to put your effort into? Where are you going to put your focus and your time? And so yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
I understand what you're saying, but that's where I think they're approaching this the wrong way. Look, it's hard enough to run one club, right? And the thing is, they need to hire a separate team to handle the Dash there. So it's one of those things where, like, if they really want to make this something and get some structure to this club that hasn't been doing anything for the last 6 years, then they need to have a separate team aside from Matt Jordan. Now I'm saying Matt Jordan can, I guess, be the overseer, but they need to have like a direct general manager to hey, this is what you get. Like I don't know how the pay structure is in NWSL or how they do with the transfer fees, or if it's the same deal or whatever. Obviously, I don't know that, but somebody who has an understanding and can focus solely on the dash. That's what they need, because from what I'm understanding from you is that the same team that runs the Dynamo and does everything for the Dynamo is doing it for the dash, but they're really pushing the dash aside because they're focusing on the Dynamo.
You know, part of this stems from the fact that, and you're right. I mean, they need to have they need to have multiple leaders that or front office personnel that their entire focus, their entire position and responsibility is strictly the dash. And I'm not talking front office from a business perspective, although that's important too. You need somebody who's in charge of dash marketing, because you market differently to women's soccer than you do to men's soccer. And it has nothing to do with the fact that women's soccer is less of a sport or whatever. It has to do with the fact that your general audience tends to be different. And also it's the same sport, but if you go watch a women's soccer game versus a men's soccer game, that women's soccer, the way that they play is so much tougher. It's so much heavier. It's so much, the only way I could put it is it's so much thicker in terms of just the brutality, man. It's like watching an MMA fight, 11 on 11 MMA fight.
Oh, and trust me, look. And the crazy thing about it is, one can say that, soccer isn't the main sport in America, but you have the best team and the best national team in the world, right? By long distance.
Oh no, that gap has closed tremendously in the last couple of cycles. But yes, I get what you're saying. Yes.
So I mean, and you have recognizable names. Alex Morgan, I think, being the biggest one of them on, and obviously Megan Rapinoe and Carly Lloyd and Julie Ertz and women like that, right? And they're playing in this league, right? All of them, if not most of them, are playing in this American league. So I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I don't understand. Like, you have the World Cup champions playing 3 games here in BBVA, but yet you're out here you're marketing them 2-for-1 deals, and I'm not understanding, like, what's the deal? Because during the World Cup, there was I see Lucky's Puff fulfilled with USA national team supporters rooting them on in the finals. Where are those same supporters going out to support the U.S. women's national team right now when they're in your backyard? Or when you had one of their biggest players here for the dash and Carly Lloyd those last couple of years, where are those people at? Or, I mean, because, like, I don't, like, me, myself, personally, I don't see that much visibility in the dash, honestly. Like, when the few times that I've seen the dash on the news is when JJ Watt proposed to Ohio, like, if that's when I see you, if that's the only time I see you, I mean, come on. How are you going to get my attention, a person who loves soccer but doesn't really know anything about your product, and you're in my backyard?
I I didn't mean to be leaguer at this point, but I think it needs to be made too. You made a good point about the 2-for-1 thing and the 2-for-1 tickets, and is that what you're selling? And that there is something to be said from a business perspective, and I'm going to have to get Brett Zalaski on to talk about this, that you as a salesperson, the Dynamo /Dash / Lone Star Entertainment / Gabriel Brenner and his crew, they place whatever the monetary value is on the ticket. Now, don't get me wrong, the U.S. Soccer sets a specific value for what the base price is, and that has something to do with it because tickets are not cheap. But on the flip side of it, that by giving a 2-for-1 deal, that seems in theory, because the expense of the ticket is more than an average dash ticket would be. But what you're doing is you're devaluing the quality of the entertainment that you have on the pitch. You're basically saying to your consumer that what I'm giving you is only worth half of what you would normally, of what the price is that U.S. Soccer has put on the cost of the ticket, and that, there's a price point at which a consumer looks at the ticket and they go, okay, so that means that what I'm paying for really is $15, $20, $30, and I'm gonna get $20 worth of women's soccer, out of it. It's buy one get one free because it's not as good. That is the, whether we realize it or not, that is the subconscious that comes into play when you're talking about marketing. And so the way that they go about it, and it's been done with the Dynamo, it's been done with the Dash, it's been done with the U.S. Women's Soccer team, it's been done with other soccer events in the city. It always comes down to, we need to sell more tickets. How do we sell more tickets? Okay, when someone buys a ticket, let's just give them a free ticket, or let's give them 2 tickets, let's give them 3 tickets. Let's make it a ticket package so that when they buy a ticket to the Dash, they're going to get a ticket to the U.S. Women's National Team Olympic qualifying, or they're going to get a ticket to, to see Barca versus Bayern Munich, whatever it is.
To interrupt you here a little bit, Sean, like, I understand that part of marketing. I mean, I remember when the Dynamo first came in, and they had the Barcelona Club American game at NRG, and they had the LA Galaxy Dynamo game as part of a doubleheader. I understand completely. They're trying to get people through the door so they can check out the product. But from what I'm saying is, this is the cream of the crop. Like, these are the top level players, right? So this is like on par. If I wanted to see if the French national team for the men was playing in BBVA, these are the World Cup winners. These are the top level of the profession. So, I mean, when you're selling down the product like that, I understand for like the club team, for the Dash, they're trying to get, the masses of asses in the seats, and they're trying to get people through the door so they can see the product, and hopefully it'll grab them, just like what we do when we, with the Dynamo, like, hey, bring somebody with you that hasn't come, let them check out a game. They might fall in love with it and they might come back themselves, blah, blah, blah. I understand that completely. But the thing that I have a hard time dealing with is the fact that, that, like, it's not like it's not like the U.S. women national team is bringing their B squad. From my understanding, it's their whole A squad and everything, and they're playing here for 3 games, recently coming off of World Cup championship, and yet they're over here selling these things like, hey, buy one get one free.
Well, let me ask you a question. If it wasn't for the Dynamo and your connection with the Dynamo, would you even have known the U.S. Women's National Team were coming into town?
Well, okay. So, I mean, there's a way to promote it, and there's a way. If you're asking me if I've seen it on television or anything like that, no, I haven't. Now, obviously, I do get on a lot of blogs and stuff like that, and Twitter through the Dynamo and all that stuff. So, I see it there, right? But it's like this. I'll give you one example that I just had recently. So a ticket representative from the Dynamo just called me up a couple of days ago, right? Offering me a palm package, right? And then they throw in the Dash or this and that, or they're throwing in the U.S. Women National Team, ticket. Me being somebody that obviously is highly connected to the Dynamo and all that stuff, and follows the Dynamo a lot closer than other normal folks. Obviously, I know what's going on, but if I was just a regular casual fan, I would know nothing about it. I don't know anything about it. I haven't seen it anywhere on television or anywhere. Maybe on the radio, I heard it once or twice, but I haven't heard anything about it. And these are the World Cup champions. If the U.S. men's national team won the World Cup, it would be promoted. There would be billboards everywhere. I haven't seen a billboard anywhere.
That's my struggle. It comes down to that. There's marketing, and it was a struggle that the Dynamo had up until, really honestly, John Walker and Deanna Witter came to town, and that was just last year.
But isn't the U.S. Federation backing the U.S.? I mean, this is
that's funny. That's you got a job for you ahead of you at comedy.
No, I mean, I know the whole thing that they had, with the CBA, and they're trying to get equal pay, and I know all that, but still, it falls under the umbrella of, because I know the whole situation where they were having trouble having the amount of jerseys, the women's jerseys, because people were ordering the women's jerseys because they were winning, and they didn't have enough quantity because they didn't think people were going to order them. Right? That was one of the biggest things that I've heard from that side of things. Right? So the federation isn't really backing them that much, right? I'm guessing.
It doesn't have to do with that. It's just in general, U.S. Soccer Federation tends to let the local clubs,
Okay.
they tend to let them be the ones to market the stuff. They don't market stuff themselves.
But there has to be a certain bar to be met, or a certain standard that needs to be met, right? Because I mean, obviously, as a city that's buying for to be one of the cities for a World Cup in a couple of years from now, right? All these little things mean a lot. All these presentations mean a lot, right? So wouldn't it be in the best interest of the Houston World Cup Committee 2026, whatever, to make sure that they're promoting it out here and these billboards or this and that, especially it being the World Cup champions for the women's side? That, I mean, if that doesn't get you wanting to go see a soccer game, then I mean, and and I hate to sound like I'm trying to put the women's game down, but I'm not, thinking about it.
I don't want to dive I don't want to dive too much more into it, because I think we could honestly spend 3 hours more talking about this and breaking it down, because it is a struggle. It is something that sits at the periphery of even men's soccer, supporters and men's soccer fans, that it's just there, right? And the fact is women's soccer has grown in this country. It's grown as a sport in the world. And and it's becoming a bigger deal, and it's the responsibility of U.S. Soccer Federation. It's the responsibility of FIFA. It's the responsibility of the Dynamo to make it something that is desirable here in the city. And that falls to the Dash to do that. And Callow said it best, and I think it's as simple as this. Let them operate separately. Let them allow them to be their own thing. Stop treating them like a lost child. I've talked about this, and Callow and Cisco will attest. I've talked about this exactly this way for over 3 years now, because it's always been that the organization just treats the Dash as kind of they're a cause. They're a charity to get behind. You should support them because they're role models, because it's the right thing to do, not because they're awesome to watch, not because the sport is amazing, not because they're women's soccer players, they're women athletes, and they're doing a damn good job and they're trying their best. It's because they're role models. It's because they're a cause, because you should support them. That's what it comes down to, and that's my frustration in general. That's where I get irked and get upset, and that's my general struggle, and why I'm not going to the U.S. Women's National Team qualifying, because I don't want and don't need, to deal with that. I feel like the Dash have turned me off from women's soccer enough at this point that if the Dynamo don't let the Dash take things seriously, then I'm probably not going to be a women's soccer fan for much longer at all. And I like women's soccer. I think it's an amazing opportunity. I think it's an amazing sport. And I think the athletes are incredible given the right opportunities, but I just can't support it when the Dash are putting forth the product on the pitch that they're putting on the pitch. And it's not the fact that they're not spending money. It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that they're just treating it like it's, something less than it should be treated. With that being said, I'm going to end that there. That's the end of the Dash discussion. There was one more thing I wanted to discuss, and we've got about 18 minutes before we hit that third final full hour to make it 3, which we have at this point. And that is, college soccer is about to change pretty dramatically if coach, and I can't remember his name, but there's a coach up in the Northeast that's pushing for this change in particular, and there's a pretty good contingency of coaches that are on board with this change, and so they're going to vote. And they want to change the season for college soccer from a strictly spring semester season it's like a 6-week season or 8-week season or something ridiculous like that, to split it out across, have basically a 2-semester season that runs across both the fall and the spring semester. And their focus and their reason for this is pretty simple, is they believe, and studies have been shown since 2015, that a split season will have less impact on classes missed by student athletes due to midweek matches, because there's no midweek matches, or very, very few, when you split it across 2 semesters, because you can have breaks in there and things like that too. The other thing that this allows for, and this is just as much for men's and as it is for women's soccer, is you give the athletes' bodies more time to recover between matches, which is better for their overall fitness, but you're also training their bodies to withstand an entire season of soccer across both the fall and the spring semesters, as opposed to just the spring semester where their bodies only have to take punishment for 8 weeks, and then they get basically 8-9 months off to recover, and that's not how it works in professional soccer. I think this would be a huge step towards helping U.S. soccer and helping that transition period between academy players and from MLS and USL. Those academy players transition to professional soccer in the U.S. and for that matter abroad. What do you think about that, Mark?
As far as for like the student athlete, I mean, it's good for them. I mean, you give them time to focus on their studies, and you give them time to recover from their nicks and knacks from playing soccer, obviously, so from a student athlete perspective, I mean, I think it's great for them. Now obviously playing devil's advocate here, and going on top of what you're saying about, that's not what they do in professional soccer. I mean, aside from maybe Liga MX that does the 2 tournaments within a calendar year, but I think it's just another how do I put this? Another step backwards in trying to connect college soccer with a professional game. I mean, but then again, it's not NCAA's. It's not there to do whatever FIFA wants them to do. That's not their purpose. NCAA is going to do whatever's. Well, this is going to sound kind of ironic, but NCAA is going to do whatever is quote unquote best for the student athlete. But and in this case, I mean, they're guessing that this is what's best for them, and their soccer side of things. And yeah, I see where it's great for the student athlete, and I have no opposal towards it. I mean, if it makes them better, and if it keeps them healthier for a longer period of time, and if I guess it gives them more time to focus on their studies, I guess I'm for it, man. I mean, you can't really say nothing against it. Now, if one of those players is really looking to make a stride and go out there and be a professional soccer player, I don't know that. Do you know how long the separation between the 2 tournaments would be?
There would be, I think, like a 4 to 6 week period. Like it's a pretty good chunk of time to let them deal with midterms, to let them deal with winter breaks, those sorts of things.
Okay, I mean, okay, it's not too bad, but yeah, but still, but once you start, not training for a certain period of time, it takes a while for no matter if you're a professional player or amateur, it takes a little bit of a while to get back into the groove of things. And I think that's where you'll see a little bit of a lack of quality once they get back to playing their second tournament or the first tournament coming from the second tournament. So,
well, I can tell you, because I know some college athletes and have known some college athletes that were soccer players in particular, that they struggled when that lull happens at the end of the spring semester after they finish their spring tournament season or spring season, and they're done and tournament season is over, and they go have their summer, and then they have an entire winter where they're just doing basic fitness stuff, nothing heavy, nothing hard, that it's really hard for them to come back after winter break and then go through their full fitness tests. It is significantly difficult. That kind of a layoff, when you're talking 7-8 months of layoff time from, like, in terms of intense training and intense training and intense gameplay, that's rough on the body in general. There's a reason why marathon runners try to run more than one marathon, in a year if they can, because they have to keep that. You have to keep it up. You can't just stop what you're doing for a few years and come back, or a few months and come back. You have to kind of keep that level of intensity. Otherwise, your body begins to change. It begins to revert, to its its catatonic state almost, if you will. But with that said, 83%, and I'm saying this, it's in the article. I tweeted it out, retweeted it earlier from the goalkeeper, at the goalkeeper. But 83% of student athletes that were surveyed said they were in favor of a split season for the pure fact of they wouldn't miss classes. They're very unlikely to miss any classes due to tournaments or games or midweek matches or anything like that. There'd be no travel involved like that, where you're traveling midweek to make a match happen away. And also for the pure fact that their bodies are better suited to a full year of training, as opposed to training for a few months and then you go do a different. And really what ends up happening is most of your soccer players in college end up being two-sport players because they need something to keep them that intensity up during the winter months, basically.
So this is where the difference is between amateur NCAA soccer to professional, and as opposed to let's say for example, college football to NFL, right? So for the most part, when you're playing college football, for the most part, if you're a scholarship player for that football team, you're a scholarship player, you're trying to do your best to go professional, right? And I don't see that type. I mean, obviously, we have the super draft, and there's ways for the college players to go get drafted, and some players go to overseas to get trials and all that stuff. But for them, I would like to see what percentage of players actually take college soccer seriously, or if it's just an opportunity to get a scholarship to get their education. Which there's no bash here. I mean, if you're playing soccer to get an education, great. But if you're playing soccer to continue playing soccer, then cool. That's great too. But I would like to know like what the percentage of players that come into NCAA soccer really see it as a pathway to get to professional soccer. Because when I see when I watch college football, or even now when I watch college basketball, like like these players, hey, I'm gonna especially like in basketball, I'm only playing this 1 year because I'm going professional next season. Or in college football, I'm playing 2 seasons, and then I'm going if I'm good enough and my evaluations and my testing come out well, I'm going professional. Like I don't really hear that about soccer, about the college soccer players. Like I can't really think of the last great college soccer player that I heard. I can't really think about them. Can you tell me?
No, I really can't, because typically if a player is going to college and they're a soccer player, they're not, they're expecting to go to USL or maybe NWSL. I mean, soccer players in women's soccer in America, if they're good enough, they can look at NWSL as a possibility, but it's different. It's just different.
It is different. No, and that's my point. And that's my point in total, because this change, it seems more beneficial towards the student athlete. Obviously it should benefit the student athlete, obviously, because you're saying that, the scheduling that the way it is now is grueling to the body, because it takes such a long layoff off, which I understand completely. You can't go from 0 to 100 and then go back to 0 just like that. The soccer, you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's
Cisco said the Canadian drafted by Orlando was the last he can remember. And I don't remember who that was, but yeah, it's
Kyle
definitely
Ryan.
Yeah, Kyle Ryan. Yeah,
Kyle
Ryan. Yeah.
See, but you see how long it took us to think of that? I mean, and he doesn't even know the name. He's the Canadian.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're not wrong.
No, and I'm just saying, like, I think I don't know. Like with the NBA and college basketball. So the NBA and college basketball, obviously, they came to an agreement that, hey, the NBA wants the college player to have at least 1 year of college basketball, right, before they can go jump into the draft.
Yep.
Now there's Now, obviously, there's loopholes, but at least the professional league is working with the amateur league to kind of, you know, help out, and there being a pathway to the professional league, right? I don't understand. Well, I don't know why MLS doesn't do the same. I mean, I know like they have like the scouting combines, kind of like the NFL and stuff, and things of that nature. And I think, do they have like a senior game? I don't know. Do they have
Not anymore, because the official combine has been canceled. Like they didn't even have an official combine this year. They just had a gathering of college kids that were looking to get drafted that ended up playing against each other. That became essentially the unofficial combine, but the official combine was essentially turned, was shut down this year.
See, so that's what I'm saying. So that in itself, even more, that tells you that there's no correlation or no connection between the amateur game and the professional game in America. So that's why, like like I said before, from the standpoint of a student athlete, that sounds like a great plan, a great idea, all that stuff. But as far as for me as say if I'm Matt Jordan or I'm Gabriel Brenner and I'm owning and I'm looking for talent in the college level, I'm not going to be looking for that much talent in the college level, because apparently it's not coinciding with the professional game.
It's not currently. In this, the reason I brought this up is this is a step. And the coach that's kind of pushing for this has even said, this is not all there is to this, but this is a step to get us moving in the right direction. The fact is the college game is so far different from the professional game that when kids come out of college, they have 2 to 3 seasons of development for most kids before they're really ready for MLS play or before they're ready for even NWSL play, to be very fair and very honest. And so if it's taking 2 to 3 extra seasons beyond, or years beyond the 4 years that they spent at college, for some of them 5, at that point they've wasted 7
24-year-old players.
Yeah, they're 24, 25-year-old players. You're lucky if you get 5 years out of those players before they're done. And so, that's not profitable. That's not usable for MLS or for NWSL, for that matter, long term. And I think that's why you're seeing more and more MLS teams going with their own academy players. They're going away from drafting, players in college. And I mean, yes, we still have the draft. I don't know how much longer we have the draft. I think the draft becomes a USL thing and they move it to USL Championship draft. I think that we end up seeing that happen in the next 10 years because it's not useful for MLS franchises anymore.
Oh, it isn't, because I mean, if you're going to be the top tier league in your country, and your amateur league is not in cohesion with what you're trying to do as a professional league, then there's no reason for you to go dipping for talent in that league pool, especially when you have so many educations from secondary level all the way up to I guess even up to college level education. And during that same time, they're getting they're getting their development in soccer as well. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because if the Dynamo are trying to do the same thing over here, then why would I need to go look at University of North Carolina or Akron or whatever to look for soccer players when I got better soccer players in my backyard? Or I can just go to Central America, South America, and go pick up 1 or 2 players from there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think there's definitely a longer discussion to be had around it. But I saw the article come across today, and it's worth a read. If you haven't read it yet, definitely look through our retweets, and you'll find it. It is a phenomenal article. Jonathan Tannenwald does an amazing job writing in general when he covers soccer, but that article in particular really caught my attention for the things that were in there and the things that he said. And it's just good stuff, and it's again, it's a step in the right direction. And if NCAA soccer, if college soccer can get things shifted, and we start to see, and look, even if they shift it in 2 to 3 seasons, which they were talking 2024 before they make that change, even if it's voted as what they want to do, we're not going to see the effect of that for 3 to 4 seasons after that. Because you still have kids that, for 2 or 3 seasons before that they went through they went through the half season thing, where they just got just the spring semester. It's going to take time. It's changing soccer at the college level, at the young adult level, making it to MLS, making it to NWSL. That transition period in terms of changing that transition, that's going to take a long time. That's not going to be an overnight fix. I mean, the reason Germany was able to fix it is because they don't have to contend with college soccer. They approached it from a very, very different aspect, and they already had a general academy system spread throughout the country, but they bought into it even more. But the fact is, it still took them 5 to 10 years. Really, it took them about 10 years before they actually saw the full effect of the change. So my point is, what I'm really trying to get at is, the struggles that we see with college soccer and with amateur soccer in terms of USL at the lower levels. Those things are going to take a while before they change, no matter what initiatives they do now. And my concern, I think, is that there are going to be some college voters, is the best way to put it. The individuals who have the money and power. They're going to be some of them that say, "Look, we told you it wasn't going to work after 3 seasons or 3 or 4 years." When in reality, that's not enough time to see something like this take effect. It's kind of the same thing with the Dynamo Academy. And expecting them to suddenly be pumping out academy prospects. I mean, they're getting very close to being able to do that, but expecting it to happen just because Paul Holliker took over last year. It's going to take a couple of seasons. It's going to take 3-4 seasons before we see that effect. It's a long-term strategy. It's a long-term plan. But if that strategy pans out, if that works out the way that it's expected to, the way that we hope it will, at the end of the day, the Dynamo are going to be a very, very good club and good organization for a long time to come. Anyways, that's all I had. The show is over. It is 10 o'clock. It is 3 hours. Good Lord Almighty, I'm tired. But we made it. We did it. We talked Dash. We talked Dynamo. We talked college soccer. We talked USL, technically. We talked draft picks. I don't know if there was something we didn't cover this week, but we covered it all. And guys, thank you for joining us this week. If you've been watching the stream, if you're still watching, hey, first of all the more power to you for sticking it out. Second of all, do us a favor, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the share button. Especially subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications as soon as we go live each week. Again, next week may or may not happen. We may happen on a different day next week, just because it worked for me. Stay tuned. We'll announce on Twitter one way or the other. Later, Cisco. Have a good night. Cisco has to be up in 5. That's a trooper right there. That's a trooper.
Also, guys, before we leave, just looking forward to seeing and meeting Lally on Saturday, man. So I'm going to keep a lookout for y'all.
That's right. And look for the guy playing the trumpet. That'll be Cisco. Sorry, trombone. Trombone. Sorry. My bad, Cisco. Trombone. He's a tromboner. Anyways, right, guys, again, no, seriously, thanks for joining us, guys. Y'all have a good night. We'll hit you up again soon.
Have a good one, guys.